Hello.
Okay. I'm gonna bang us in, all right? Okay. Bringing this meeting to order. It is April 18 at 5:01. Convening this business meeting of the Pacific Grove Unified School District. As we begin this meeting, it's important to pay respect and to acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Ohlone, Castanoan, and Esalen people, and additionally pay respect to elders both past and present. And Dr. Adamson, would you be so kind as to take care of a roll call, please?
I would be happy to. President Swanson.
Present.
Dr. Hazen.
Here.
Trustee McNary.
Here.
Trustee Otmar.
I'm here.
And Trustee Swanson.
Here.
Awesome. So moving on to the adoption of the agenda. I think everybody has the most current. Are there any issues, suggested changes, or anything related to that? And before we do that, public comment. Is there any public comment on the agenda? Seeing none and nobody online, Elliot? All right, Elliot. Sorry, Lewis. All right. Nobody. I'm so sorry. Okay. And board, any suggested changes? Seeing none, so can we find a motion to approve the agenda?
I so move.
And I'll second.
All right, we have a motion from Trustee Otmar and a second from Dr. Hazen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Anyone opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. So now moving on to information discussion. Assistant Superintendent Joshua Jorn. This is yours, study session.
Present. Thank you. So what we're going to cover tonight is kind of a bookend to the past two study sessions that we had here. The prior study session was associated with safety implementation, and a potential infrastructure plan. And then prior to that, we had another board study session on school facilities and funding associated with Measure D and school facilities within this district. So I'm kind of the book ending to those was that we kind of ran out of time. So I combined them both into tonight's meeting. Dr. Adamson and I felt like it was a good time to kind of cover both at one time. Yes, there's some things that link between the two, but for the most part, they were two separate items. First and foremost, we're going to discuss tonight the PGUSD request for proposals and request for qualifications for a facilities needs assessment. This was something that staff took away from the discussion at the facilities subcommittee, or sorry, the facilities board study session. Dr. Adamson and I felt like this was the next best step towards a potential facilities master plan. We also spoke with the entities that were here that night, the three gentlemen that were here that night presenting, and they also felt like that was the next best step for our district. I felt like that was specifically because the last actual needs assessment that was done in this district on school facilities was 2009. There was a deferred maintenance plan, updated list of priorities that was done by the prior administration and the prior MOT director for support of Measure D in 2020. But the district had not had a facilities needs assessment done since 2009, so quite some time ago. So just to give the board an update on the needs assessment timeline, that's included in your packet. And Lewis, if we could put it up on the screen as well. On April 5th, we issued the RFQ that went out in a local newspaper. It was also posted to all 6 of the builders exchanges within the Tri-County area. This Friday, tomorrow, April 19th, will be the close for request for information. That's where I'm receiving questions throughout this process. And I'll publish what's called a supplemental information document tomorrow, which will go on the website. And what that does is it addresses any of the questions that came up with any of the potential RFQ vendors. The May 3rd is the close date for the RFQ. That's when final packets are due to the district office to review. And then I have a couple of dates here, May 9th and the 23rd, for potential tentative award of the professional services agreement associated with the RFQ. And then what we stated in the RFQ was that the professional services contract would be, the deliverable would be that needs assessment would need to be to the district by June 29th of 2024. Now, the RFP process is, as you can see here, kind of a lengthy process when to go out for public input and to make it a competitive process. And that's what we've done here. It does extend our timeline a little bit on when we receive our deliverable. But again, also this will come back to our board for approval at some point, either the 9th or the 23rd, as it relates to the approval of the vendor. So we'll have more to talk about that with the board in the future, but we wanted to let you know of the current timeline and that the district has issued an RFQ for a needs assessment. Any questions? Do we have Dale on? Lewis? Okay, perfect. Okay. So next up, again, kind of to bookend the conversation at the prior board study session related to facilities, was the 4 options that the board has as it pertains to a GO, general obligation bond extension. And I actually am going to pass this over to Dale if he's ready and available. Dale was going to cover with the board tonight the 4 options available, as well as the timeline for issuance associated with each one of these options, and the potential timeline associated with the cash flow, influx of cash flow associated with a bond extension, depending on which option the board would like to take. There is no recommendation from staff as to the options. We just wanted to lay out the 4 options as they exist tonight, and we'll have Dale cover that with you if he's on.
I am on. The question is, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Dale.
We got you.
Okay, great. I apologize for not being there. The traffic was not very helpful tonight. So, so we're at the side of the road, in a safe place. And hopefully this will work out. Can I get the other slide, the slide with the arrows, that was put up first? I think that's going to be helpful to frame the topic.
It's up, Dale.
It had been, it is up. Okay. I'm not seeing it on the screen, but that's fine.
Hmm.
So districts have to issue their bonds. I'm sorry, they have to go to the voters to get authority to issue their bonds on a general election date. And so that is essentially a presidential election, a gubernatorial election, or a primary. Or sometimes they have, we had a recall, for example, that would be a general election date. If we go back, and I'll get to this slide up here in just a second, but if we go back over the last 20 years, we take all of those elections, we divide them up between those elections that are on a presidential date, those on a gubernatorial election date, those on a primary date. The numbers are pretty telling. All of those elections in the presidential bucket, they have a 90% passage rate. If we take all of the elections that have been on a presidential ballot, 90% for presidential, 80% passage for gubernatorial, a little bit less than 70% for primaries and other special elections. So that brings us to this slide that you're looking at tonight, which has both November and November 24 at the top, November 28 at the bottom. Those are the presidential elections. There'll be one gubernatorial election in the middle, and then the 2 primaries, the gubernatorial primary in 26, the presidential primary, which will be in March of 28. So I think because of those numbers that I just listed off to you, I personally believe that
We just lost him. Yeah.
Okay. I'll just jump in briefly while we're waiting for Dale. I think what he was getting ready to explain was that, you know, the best option for a voter passage is associated with a presidential election, right? So whether it's the November of 24 or the November of 28. Sorry, Dale, you're back
I'm sorry,
on.
I don't know what happened. It just blew up and put me back on. Okay. So I think that takes the gubernatorial primary, frankly, off the table, just because of the very large difficulty in gaining success. What this shows is on this graphic is, when would you receive the funds? When could you first receive the funds? So if the district were on the 24 ballot in November, you would have the funds available in early 25, probably, let's say, March of 25. if we drop down to the November 26th gubernatorial election, it would not be until, say, March of 27, after the November gubernatorial race. If we waited till the next presidential election, that would be all the way into the first quarter of 2029, a long time to wait. So that gives you your options of why the presidential 24 election is so important. I'm going to give you I apologize. I don't know what's going on.
We got him back.
There we go. Okay.
It just keeps dropping me, but it doesn't
Yeah,
seem to be on.
rewind if you would 60 seconds or so, because I'm not sure where we lost you. So
Well, I lost you I started by saying I thought the presidential election was one that should be at the top of the list for November. And I'm going to run you through really the 4 options that the board has, and I'll speak quickly in case it drops me again. Option number 1 is to do the election as was described in the survey. That would be the $75 million general obligation bond. It's would be in the November 24. That would require a 55% voter authority authorization. It would also require at least 4 votes from board members in order to be on the ballot. The second opportunity is to stay on that November 24 ballot, but perhaps because of concerns over how far you are in the development and analysis stage, you would then you would hold off the entire amount, not go for the $75 million amount, but put some lesser amount on that would get you through to the gubernatorial election or the presidential election. But you'd still be on the November of 24 ballot, say for 25 million or 30 million, something like that. And then you'd get back on the ballot in 26 or 28. The third option, frankly, is to do nothing, skip the election and move to 26 or move to 28. And the last option would be to do a 2/3 election. 2/3 elections aren't done very often. They're still allowable, however. It would drop the it would raise the voter threshold to 2/3, but it would lower the required number of votes on the board level from 4 to 3. So it has it doesn't have a lot of pluses, except that it has the ability to move quickly to get on the 24 ballot if, for example, board members were not present or you don't have a supermajority on the board. Again, these are all presented to you as information, not as recommendations, with the exception of I do think that either the presidential or the gubernatorial ballots have the highest level of success, with the presidential being, of course, the highest. And I'm happy to answer any questions as long as my internet stays up.
I'm going to jump in just real quick with the question again, or just a reminder as to the survey that went out. What were the results on that again, as far as people that were leaning favorable towards a new bond?
I do not have it in front of me, but my recollection is without information, there was over a 70% support.
I think we were close to 80 even, weren't we? It's like,
I believe you were close to 80 at the end after information.
yeah, so, okay. All right. Thank you. Let's go around the horn. Board comments, thoughts?
Oh, I'll go quickly just to say that I'd love a little more context on the out of money by, I think it was July 26th, is that right? In terms of, you're talking specifically here, Josh, about maintenance funds, right? And I remember we did put more money in the maintenance pots, I think of December like a year and a half ago, but would love to hear more about that. Like, that makes sense.
Right. So the district still has 2 series on Measure D to release. And included in the packet is a link to the list of priorities that the district currently has adopted. I think it's only through 24, 25. It's through 25, 26. with the remaining two series available to the district would be able to complete the projects that are on the Measure D priority list as attached. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, and then
Okay.
basically, but nothing else would be doable after 26, I mean, on the Measure D priority list, given we've spent that money, but there's still a lot of priorities that would be left over that we're not gonna be able to address.
Right. So, yeah, it kind of goes back to the original discussion at the prior study session, which was that we don't really have a facilities master plan and we don't really have a current facilities needs assessment. So the concern staff has is that when we do finalize a facilities needs assessment, which gives us a baseline of information as it relates to school facilities and infrastructure. And I want to be clear, that doesn't take into consideration additional program movement, right? Program growth. We know that we're not in we know we're in a level or a declining enrollment state. But when you do a facilities master plan, and the first step is a facilities needs assessment, you have to take into consideration program movement and growth. Are the classrooms designed to function for our teaching staff and for our students for the current program that they plan to offer? So that's kind of one of the questions, right? And it's an involved process. So to answer your question, there would be enough money to complete the projects on our list of priorities. There would not be enough money left over in those two series to begin to address items that may or may not come up in the needs assessment.
Yep, so I'll be completely honest, I'm a little surprised there isn't a staff recommendation on this, because it does seem like not going ahead with the bond this election cycle would be pretty detrimental to some of our goals.
I think Dale Scott was saying it's not his recommendation, but as a staff, we are recommending that, yes, we consider the bond. Absolutely. That is our recommendation.
Okay, thank you. That's very.
And you know what, I jumped the gun here a little bit too, because we were first, I think, supposed to go to public comments. So no, that's my bad. So, but is there any public comment on this particular, nobody online, anybody in the room on this particular item? All right, so let's go back to the board. Other thoughts? Yes, yeah.
I do think that.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, here.
Well,
Oh, thank you.
do we, I think, yeah, I'd like to just do it. If you don't mind going to the
Oh,
podium,
you go to the
we should
podium.
have
Oh,
a
this is
microphone
so
set up there.
Yeah, sorry.
We
We don't have a mic
Lewis,
on
can
the,
we get the mic set up?
It's just a comment about the bond of being, the 75 million versus like the more conservative of not taking all of it at once. I think that might be the smarter choice and maybe get more votes, if that makes sense, in November. I think voters voting for a $75 million bond looks really scary, like on paper. And so just from what I've heard from the public, because I think that was one of the options, right? We could take not all of the 75 million in November and vote on 25 million or whatever it is. That to me kind of meets in the middle and doesn't, it kind of makes more sense and it doesn't look so scary. So that's all.
thank you. And I know it's not a Q&A, but if board members have questions or something that relates to this, we're absolutely free to ask. I do have a question about that though.
As a point of order, I'm just trying to understand the format of the session. Are we in public comment mode right now? Or or is this board discussion time? Is it free flowing? Because I'm not totally familiar with how that works. Can we get
Nor am I.
some clarification?
I think really the public comment is intended to be at the end of the study session once we've had the full discussion. And so we should
Okay.
probably wait until, yes, we've concluded all the information, and that's when we'll ask for public to comment at that time. Yes.
And I'm just
Thank you for
going
that
by
reminder.
the way that it rolls on the agenda right now. So, I mean, as long as the rest of the board is okay too, so. All that said, I'm curious too. It's like, if we determine the amount, is Dale still online too? All right, so it's like,
I am.
so what we would have to determine though, of course, is what is the dollar amount that we're going after? And then if we decided later we wanted to go after more, we would have to do it again. Is that correct? We'd have to float that.
That is,
If I could add on that question, it's just what would the financial obligation be too? Like, I'm assuming it would actually cost us more to go twice to the voters than it would to go once. So it'd be good to know how much more that would be.
It might be better.
would you like me to answer that?
Yes,
Please.
please. Yeah.
It would be twice as much. Well, it wouldn't be twice as much in the professional fees. In terms of the underwriting fees, there'd be no difference because they charge on a percentage basis. So I take that back. It would be roughly 50% more to do that in the fees. However, it also provides the ability to make a larger amount in the second series, or a smaller amount, depending on where you are in your process. So it does give you additional flexibility. I think that's what you'd be paying for.
So this question, I guess, goes to you. How, and sorry if this has already been covered, but how long will it take to complete the facilities needs assessment? Because I mean, November is creeping up pretty quick. And if we don't have a solid number by then, this is all kind of a moot point.
Right, so the deliverable is due to the district by June 29th. It's on the timeline there, and I would say that's a pretty aggressive deliverable for 6 sites. A facility needs assessment at just pick one school site should take a vendor anywhere between 1.5 to 2 weeks, right? Worth of investigation, documentation, and then quantifying costs. We're asking the vendor to speed that process up significantly. We would like to have a needs assessment available to the district for review at the end of June or the first part of July to coincide with the potential for a November bond election. Fortunately for the district, like a couple of our sites are very small, right? So community high isn't going to take them 2 weeks. The adult school may or may not take them 2 weeks. There is a lot of data that we have from internally from staff that was built related to the high school and Forest Grove, because that's kind of some of the targeted projects right now. So we're hoping that some of it can be expedited. But yeah, we intend to have a deliverable back by the end of June.
Okay. And then I suppose a concern that I would have about having this deliverable be completed so quickly is there the potential then for missing, say, if there are new classes we're adding, or, you know, expanding certain programs. I don't want to miss that either, so that we ask for this bond money and we end up skipping something, missing something, and now we're sort of left behind, you know?
That's a great point. And that's the consideration we're taking in moving forward beyond the needs assessment into a facilities master plan.
Okay.
So the needs assessment basically establishes in real time what repairs the school sites need. It does not address or assess program growth and movement. That's a part of the facilities master planning process, whereby we also have stakeholder input, community input, staff input, right? It's a much larger process, aside from having somebody go to the school site and look at our roofs, look at our buildings, look at our infrastructure. That's the next step.
And do we have an idea for timeline on that?
So most facilities master plans take the course over about a year. And again, written into the RFQ was, we're not asking them to give us pricing, but we're asking them to be so we want a vendor that can be pre-qualified to do a facilities master plan if the board decides to move past the facilities needs assessment, right? So we would prefer not to have to move to another vendor. We didn't ask for the pricing. So that's why it's an RFQ. We want a proposal for the needs assessment. We want them to be qualified to do a facilities master plan.
I suppose the other piece for me is my thought on splitting it is what I wouldn't want to happen is voters get burnt out. They see, oh, there's PGUSD asking for more money. It's sort of like, not that I think people are going to say that, but it could look like we just keep asking for money. And what did they do the last amount of money? So I almost feel like asking for it up front and just going for it. And if there's a 80% oh, sorry, and typically a 90% bond pass rate in a presidential election. I mean, I think the clock is kind of ticking for us, because if we wait until a primary or the gubernatorial, I mean, the percentages go down by 10% likelihood that we're even going to get that bond to pass. I mean, I would be in favor of just going for it. I don't, yeah, that's where I'm at. I don't know if that's is the time to say that, but here it is.
Anybody else?
I'll go. I guess I'll just come right out and say, I'm not in favor of putting it on the ballot until we have a plan in writing that lays out what we want to fund and gives us a number that we can then go to the voters or get a parcel tax or whatever big number it's gonna be, but at least we know what we're working with. I get really worried about saying like, let's just go ask for $78 million and then figure it out afterwards, because I feel like happened a bit with the 2020 bond. And I don't want to make the same mistakes. And I feel like, we're such a great new group and we all have the same goal of the facilities getting improved and our school safety improving. And I want us to do it in a way that we're all comfortable with. And so for me, it's the facilities master plan. That's what I need. That's what I need to understand what we want to spend the money on. And that's what I need to be able to tell the voters and the public what we're spending our money on. It feels like an accountability piece for all of us. And I think it's really important. So that's where I'm at. I hear you. I get worried about rushing through something so important, because it is like, what if we miss something? Then what do we do? And I don't want to have to kind of feel like we have to piecemeal then on top of what we're doing. So that's kind of where I'm at. I can't support the tax extension for this year at least, but I would love to explore other options. So I guess I just said my piece too. So there goes two of us.
Right.
I want this to be a 5-0 vote when we put it on the bond, when we put it on the ballot. I think that would be ideal. I think we've seen such success in having 5-0 votes in recent past, and how that really allows for us to continue our work and stay focused on students instead of unnecessary friction. So I appreciate that staff, after the last study session, I think their intentions were good in wanting to get something moving, because they heard us say that there wasn't something in writing, that there wasn't a plan for our facilities and beyond. And so I just want to say again, so this facilities needs assessment that is out there, that we're requesting it for proposal and quote, is not a facilities master plan. And the facilities master plan means that we would be being very thorough and looking at the programming, the educational programming of our district, not just the building envelopes and structures and leaky things and break things that are about to break. So I would like to see a facilities master plan, which, Josh, it sounds like maybe that can be asked for or with this existing RFQ, because you asked for the vendors to be qualified to generate one. But I don't feel there's a rush besides, like, I don't feel like that I have to rush to get this on the November 2024 ballot. So I would like to see us go full blast facilities master plan that includes things like, maybe we're going to have a child development center at the adult school, and we're going to actually move everything over there, like we've been kind of talking about for many, many years. There's so many program items that I feel like our students deserve. So that's where I'm at. I would like a facilities master plan done thoroughly, not, expeditiously, sure, but really thoroughly. And then we go from there.
All right, anybody else?
I'll go again only because, again, I haven't been in this game very long and, serving on the board and such, but it's hard for me to imagine an opportunity like this with such public support for the bond. I hear I hear what all three of you are saying, but I hear both your concerns very validly, but I also worry that we have things at our school sites that are not safe for our kids, that are not optimal for our kids. And if there's an opportunity for us to do that, with the knowledge that there will be no money spent without a facilities master plan from these bonds, I would be in support of doing them in parallel, but I also understand both of your concerns not towards that. I just would hate for us to let this opportunity pass without, doing everything we can to see what it would take to put on this upcoming ballot. And if there's not information that, it sounds like the timelines may not be aligned to get a 5-0 vote on this, but it would be my interest to do whatever we can to try to, frankly.
And if I could just add to that too, as you were talking, one of the things I was thinking about as well is economically speaking, if we do right now have voter support, we don't really know what the economy is going to do in the next however many years. I mean, we've seen it go up and go down, and we're in a pretty steady spot right now. And if people are willing to support it and to give, we may not get this opportunity at the next presidential election. I mean, who knows? Who knows? I won't go into anything political about that, but we just don't know what the future will hold with that. And so that brings up another concern for me, where it's like, if it's in motion, or if the support's there and we can get it into motion, I'd rather just do it when the support's there. And I know it's a lot of money, but I do agree. I mean, we will get a facilities master plan, and it's not like, I don't think that we're gonna. Here's a question. Do we need that master plan? We don't need the master plan in place in order to ask for the money. Do we? How does it need to be specifically designated when we bring it to ballot?
No, we do not. We need to identify how many series will be issued. There is definitely some further detail that's required, but there doesn't need to be a facilities master
It doesn't
plan
need
tied
to
to
be
it.
laid out.
I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, in parallel, yes, we're progressing with the master plan and getting the money at the same time. It really does scare me to think that, we'll cross our fingers and hopefully because I would guess the next time we would ask for it is in the next presidential election. And that's a stretch away. I mean, it's 4 years. So what our schools are going to look like in 4 years without this money, I would rather go for it than let anything deteriorate any further. I mean, we're making great progress now, and I think we just continue on that path. That's all I have for right now.
Well, and I think it's important to listen to at least what we heard from the survey already too. It's like, we do have public support. They're not it's at least what we got back was not demand for all the detail. And the board, whatever the board makeup is, once, as we roll through November and, into next year too, it's like there will still be oversight on how that money is spent. I am worried too about, it's like, well, what happens next year and the year after, and what voter support might be for it as we, roll into those particular years. But we have it now. And, whether it's 75 million or it's like, and that's still not enough. That's still not enough money. When you walk our campuses and you see what needs to be done, there's so much that needs to be done. But I hear what you're saying too, where it's just like, I would love for, I would hate for it to not be unanimous. That troubles me. I really hate that idea. And I'm trying to weigh that against knowing what I think we need to do for the district and what we need to do in finding funding for the district. So that's really hard. I feel really caught in the middle on that, but I'm listening, or I'm trying to listen to the public too, and what they're saying. not just what is happening with the five of us too.
For me, I cannot, go out and ask for money if I can't show on paper why I'm asking for it. And I'm not a construction, subject matter expert, so I definitely see the need for our facilities to be improved. But I have no idea how much even remotely that would cost. And so I want us to be empowered with education and not be worried that something is going to change. I think right now, if I remember correctly from the previous survey, 58% of voters didn't know if we had completed and fulfilled our promises in Measure D. They weren't sure about it. So if we're getting a high rate of voters still willing to vote for that bond, and we have almost 60% who are unaware of our goings on, I'm not worried that's going to change. And I think that if we take our time and do the facilities maintenance plan that I think we've all really been craving, including the public and including our families, then we can put it on the 2026 ballot and do good by the public. I mean, not to sound extreme, but I don't want to go to the grocery store and have an older voter, 55 plus voter who doesn't have kids in the district, so they're not getting our daily, weekly emails, and say, why is this on the bond? Why is this on the ballot? Why are you asking for 75 million? I'll be like, well, have you seen our schools? I mean, that's like pretty much the answer right now versus saying, look at this. We actually need 247 million. We're going to do 75 now in 2026, and then we're going to go for more later, or we're going to do, we need to do a deep dive on finances. We need to find out about a parcel tax. If that maybe is like an ongoing, really beautiful route to keep sustaining certain things. So I'm not in favor of rushing it, and I'm not in fear of it harming a student. We have things in place. We have money in place to make sure that our schools are safe on a day-to-day basis for our students. If they're not, we need to hear about it and address that right away, regardless of when a bond is on the ballot. So those are two separate topics for me.
I think the important thing is we're not making a decision tonight. And I love the fact that we have this opportunity, and you've all asked for that, to really have more information, to be able to have that discussion. What I'm hearing from all of you, I think, which just, brings joy to my heart, is, you want that consensus. And I think that's important to all of you. And I agree with that. And I think that's so much a part of, I think what I want to, just commend, Mr. John for and his team, and really trying to bring as much of that, information to you so we can make these informed decisions. I wish I had a magic wand and we could just add another 6 months to this, that we could, before having to make that decision. But I appreciate you all weighing in and just giving it so much thought. I think that's critical right now. I understand. I think, knowing that even with the needs assessment, looking at that timeline, to have that information by the end of June, it doesn't align with, where we want to be by then. At least we'll have that, I think, at that time, and, we'll, be able to have those discussions. I know, that Dale, you have said to us that, the latest we could make that decision would be July. Can you confirm that that's correct?
The cutoff date for filing the resolution with the county is August 9th.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so it gives us still a little bit of time. I want to share that with all of you as trustees. I think we keep, open-minded along those lines. And, I think when we bring that information to you, in June, just knowing that, okay, you still, would at least that gives you some information to make more of an informed decision at that time. I'd like to truly still be able to move forward with that, and let's see where we land at that time. And I think too, what we want to hear from you tonight, if there's anything else in addition, and I don't think there is, because you're asking for, a facilities master plan. We're not going to have that by then. We can, yes, have the results of the needs assessment. But again, I think I'd love to have that opportunity for all of you to have that information at that time, come together again and then make that decision then, right? But anything else you need for then, let us know now.
Yeah, I wanted to dig into one comment that Trustee Carolyn brought up about the not having the materials to be able to say. And I mean, the needs assessment could provide, I mean, I guess what I'm wondering is, that seems like something we could get to by the end of this June 29th is, but I understand that may not be the full master plan, which involves the growth, et cetera. But I guess I guess what I'm wondering again is there a way we could get with the needs assessment, some of these handouts type, documents, it really does get into the details of this is why we need the money. I mean, the number that is stuck in my head since we started talking about this is like replacing the windows, right? Replacing the windows at one site was how much money again? Can you remind me, Josh? I think it was at Robert Down. You gave us the site.
It was the high school.
That was
Yeah, we
high
had
school.
$40 million worth of projects, and just under 20 million was related to window and door replacement.
Right. So if we're
at the
talking
high school,
so if we're just talking about windows and door, like, I mean, that's that number. I'm like, that's not even, I mean, or I should say that is what, 30% basically, a little less than that of the $79 million. So like, if we just wanted to replace all the windows, the bond would barely get us there. And that's why, to me, the need, if we can tell the voters why we have a need, I would love to provide them with the ability to vote on something like this to say, yes, we want to at least replace the windows, or yes, we at least want to accomplish some of these needs, and then build the facilities master plan with them, in tow. But again, I realize the timelines may simply not be aligned. I just want to do whatever we can do as a board to ask staff to give us what we need to potentially make an informed, a more informed decision, by the end.
Anybody else? Thoughts? Trustee McNary, I did want to touch on something that you had mentioned too. You'd mentioned about like mistakes that had been made with the last bond. Could you like expound on that a little bit too? I want to
Sure.
try to get in your head a second.
Yeah, so if you look on the website, Measure D was in their pictures was about, and I'm gonna slightly generalize, but roofs, gutters, windows, and like crumbling concrete or asphalt. So that was kind of, in my mind, what we told the voters we were going to spend money on. And here we are having the discussion, how do we get more money for windows? So that's kind of a concern in my book, is that we said, hey, voters, we're going to spend money on these things. And like, we don't know how to find the money to spend it on the things we already, in my mind, kind of promised. I mean, we asked for the voters' trust, with their money, and said we were going to do these things. And it's hard for me when I run into people and they have these ongoing concerns to say like, yeah, we did go ask you for that money, but no, we didn't fulfill our promise to you.
Yeah.
So I feel like we have to set ourselves up differently. And in my mind, that's like, I need something concrete. Like I can say, hey, phase one for the first 5 years, this is what we're looking at. And we're going to need 100 million to get through 2 buildings worth of windows. But then we can be like, brand new windows. This is really easy to demonstrate to people how we showed them how they spent their money. Right now, I get confused and I'm like intimately involved with it. So as a member of the public, just a reasonable voter, I could see, and I do know, talking to people, that they're like, well, why are you asking us for more money if you haven't done what you said you were going to do? Like, it's just, it has to be clear for everybody, and I'm struggling with that. So I want us to do it differently, I think. I want us to do it thoughtfully and intentionally, and I want us to choose a number that we're asking the voters for based on information and evidence, and like something I can refer to and be like, yeah, for the first 30 million, you're getting windows. For the next 30 million, Robert Down gets windows. And right now, like 75 million is nice because we have a list of deferred maintenance projects, but it really doesn't tell us where we're going, So I don't know. It's tricky for me to feel like we might be doing this in a similar way without having the plan to fund. We're like funding, and then we're saying we're going to make the plan after, in a way. So that's kind of where I'm stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I could just a quick, because I mean, I totally feel that. And I have had I recently had a few windows done at our house, and they take out a window and then they find dry rot underneath.
Oh, sure.
And it costs 5 times as much as you expect it. And I think that is the problem that we get into is in my experience with construction, you can make all the plans that you want, and then you tear one wall open and you see, here's a bunch more money we have. And so I agree with you. I don't think we should be making any promises like, I don't want a bond to pass that says we're going to replace all the windows. I want the bond because I don't think we can ever meet that need if there's potentially the cost of glass triples or there's new problems that are found along the way that might like the electrical room, we recently had at the high school that rose in priority and supplanted that. And so that the problem is all the planning we can do will not get us to an actual number because we don't know what materials will cost at the time we do the work. We won't know what the needs may creep up that we haven't seen. The pool at the high school could have a heater fail again, right?
I'm asking for it based on what we know today. Obviously, like the landscape is going to change over time, but we didn't have a plan when we started in 2020. And then the focus shifted to building envelope, understandably, and we had staff turnover. And then the focus shifted to air quality and energy savings as per our last Measure D series. And now it sounds like our focus is somewhat shifting to like safety or fire safety, and I'm having trouble tracking. So I want it to be so clear and easy and digestible that like there aren't questions about how we're spending our money and what direction we're going.
Okay. Thank you for that. That does help. It helps a lot. Thank you. So, anybody else?
I'm just watching the time and we've got
Yep.
about 12, 13 minutes and we want to
Before
go
we
into the
jump into the
safety
next
portion of
phase.
it. So
Yep.
if you wouldn't mind, could we maybe move into that? And yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. Thank you.
Are we okay to jump into the next thing a little bit early?
I would I just have kind of a closing comment on our discussion right now. For me, it sounds like we all agree wholeheartedly that we need more money.
Mm.
So we're really all on the same page in this realm. I think we also, correct me if I'm wrong, please. I think we also all agree that we would benefit from a facilities master plan that includes facilities, maintenance, repair, and also educational programming. So the part that that sounds like we differ on is, do we do the 2024 November ballot or do we do the 2026 November ballot? Is that kind of where we're not all on the same page? Because I want the 2026 ballot we're going to have our next 2 series of Measure D coming and the rest of this list is going to be worked on in the meantime. So I feel really comfortable with November 2026.
I think you're right. I think that's absolutely where we differ.
Okay.
It's just,
You want November 2024?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yep, I
Okay.
do.
I mean, based
And
on
Elliot?
the survey results, based on the needs that we have been presented, not in a formal needs assessment yet, not in a formal facilities master plan, but there is no question that there is a lot of work that needs to be done. And again, I hear you wholeheartedly that a big part of it is we need to be able to tell the voters and the taxpayers, the non-families at our school, the families at our school, what we're doing with this. But again, it comes down to like, do I want this to be, do I want the schools to be better for the kids in particular, whether it's the heat, like you say, it's not a safety issue. If you have classrooms where the heat's not working, that's a safety issue.
Yeah, we should be addressing that right away, not November 2024.
I understand that, but this is the problem is when you address that, then we're not doing the windows, right? That was in our original
No,
thing.
I-
Because we don't have the money. We did not have a board before us that put money into deferred maintenance. So we did not have that.
I think you have fears and I have fears. My fear is that we don't put this in writing as fully as we can. Once we get the money, that's what we want, right? That's the prize. Once you get the money, the motivation to come and get the plan can change. So I say do the thing that we don't. I don't want us getting the reward without the work. So I say do the work, which sets us up for long-term addressing things that have not been historically long-term addressed, So, and then when we have staff changeover and all the things that just happen in the normal course of a work, environment, we're set. You know, this is so clear I can't get behind things that are clear or are, you know, like the weaponized living document stuff where it's like, well, it's a living document. Okay, I get that. Things change. I understand you start a project and it gets bigger, but I don't want to hear it as an excuse. And so to me, we're going to prevent so much of that heartache by doing the facilities master plan. And unfortunately, like if we were talking about this last year and it was clear that we would have it by November 24, great. But I can't, the history that I've been watching in this district, I can't get behind not having a plan for this.
I will say one
So-
last thing just on that, because I do agree with you. And I think when you talk about the history of PG, the one thing I will say is that we have someone new leading us right now. And I do have the faith that this is not something that's going to fall off the back burner, that we have.
Yes,
they
but
need-
Linda could move on. I mean,
course.
you know, I'm talking about systems in place, regardless of staff changes. I love that Linda's here. I have so much faith in
Right.
that.
And
but-
that's just what I'm saying is that I think I'm putting more faith in that. Understanding she can move on because I see this as an opportunity that could
I
pass.
can't with public money. I can't,
Right. Yeah.
but that's where I'm at. Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, I think we're almost ready to move on. Well, I still have just one thought again too, where it's just like, cause Trustee Carolyn, when you were saying, it's like you run into somebody at Trader Joe's who asks, what are we doing, right? And then, but I could also see, it's like I might run into somebody at Trader Joe's when we've got like 80% or so approval from a survey, and somebody asking me too, it's like, what were you waiting for? You know, as costs escalate, it's just like, why are you guys waiting? It's like, we said yes. So again, that's just stream of consciousness stuff from me. You get it a lot, but there is that too.
Yeah.
Also, whose kid is on
I
the
know.
fence out there?
Director Rogan is taking care of it. We were
Okay,
more
great.
distracted by a child.
Watching the kid on the fence.
It's a little bit of a
No, I was just
talk of
watching that.
safety.
So, okay, so
I don't
know
think
that's not on
Trustee
the
Otmar
agenda.
had a chance to talk, so I don't know if you wanted to speak further, but.
Just about the timeline. I mean, you had asked a question of us all about the timeline too. I think both of you, I mean, the 2024 versus 2026 was the main area we were offset.
Yeah.
I mean, I would agree with that. I would like to see it on the ballot coming up. I agree that, you know, the cost of materials is only going up and we don't know where the economy is. And in 2026, just looking at the numbers of bond measures that pass rate, and if the odds of us getting that pass rate are going to go down, I totally see where you're coming from, but I don't want to miss an opportunity. This is a great opportunity that we have. We have the voters telling us in the survey, yes, 80% we will support it. And of course, we're not going to take the money and run or go do something that's inappropriate. Even with the facilities assessment, the needs assessment, that will give us a great idea. I don't think anyone's going to say, tell me the exact amount that you're going to spend on those windows, or tell me exactly how much that ductwork is going to cost. I don't think it's necessary to get into that nitty gritty because regardless, it's all going to cost money. It has to get done. And the longer we wait, the more things will fall apart. And I know that we still have money left over that we're working with, but it's like what you're saying with the windows. You pull a window out and all of a sudden that money's gone because we found a ton of dry rot and that whole classroom's got to be closed and we've got to whatever. You just don't know. So I really am supportive of it going now because the future is unpredictable when it comes to the economy and when it comes to the price of materials. I mean, and that's our responsibility as well. I feel like to kind of secure what we know that we've got right now. That's right. I love this conversation, by the way. This is
Well,
wonderful.
It's so nice to have this, really.
Good
for everyone.
conversation,
Really
so.
appreciate it.
Lewis, anybody online? Public comment online? Any additional public comment in the room?
No, we need you.
At the micro, please.
Yeah, we need you on the mic. Sorry.
Thank you for this conversation and like the open, everybody's opinion, I think is awesome. My husband and I did vote for the bond in 2020 and we would not vote for it again because of the lack of transparency and trust that Jennifer Wagner was talking about. He says it all the time. Where is what, why isn't the roof fixed? Where would the bond money go? And so if we can't answer where the bond money went for the first time, you don't go asking the public the second time until and it may not pass. I mean, the survey says yes, but the public may not understand quite well just because the survey says it doesn't mean it will pass in November. And then what happens? So I really think that when you get like facts on paper and, you have a higher chance of it passing and gaining that trust back from the public in our district. So.
Thank you very much. So I think we're done with that particular item, unless there are other. Are we ready to move on? We're gonna, I guess, jump in oh, there is. All right.
That'll get us right to 6.
It'll get us to 6. Yes. Yeah. Okay. There we go.
Hello, everybody. I just wanted to offer my opinion briefly. I know that there's been a lot of discussion on both the positive and negative externalities of this conundrum. I was at the last Bond Oversight Committee meeting and I was presented with quite a bit of in-depth, really easy to understand factual information with current projects, what's been evaluated, what's been fixed, what was in line, chronologically upcoming. And I would think that possibly in the future that maybe finding additional formatting ways to engage the public to access that information might be beneficial. I know that it is on the district website. I think that a lot of people don't spend a lot of time and energy educating themselves on the facts before it's in front of them and then they want all the details. And I mean the general public. And I do understand that there's a large older age homeowner population that may have additional questions, but it's just something that I would bring to the table to reference at the next meeting as additional support and a conversation piece.
All right. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Nobody? Any? All right. So knowing that, and we're at 6 o'clock, so let's move on now to information discussion item B, study
Well,
session on
we
the
still
LCAP,
have
right?
the safety component, yes.
Oh.
And I know we're running out. That's what I was trying to say, but that's
Sorry.
okay. I mean, it's got extra, but I think if we're okay with maybe just going maybe 5 minutes in and just.
Oh, yeah,
giving
I'm
an
sorry. I jumped
overview
right
of
over
it.
that. I'm sorry. I missed
We'll
that.
probably have to bring this back, for more information. That's okay, because
Yep.
this is an equally big one, so. Okay. You wanna
Okay,
just
yeah,
maybe
this is
give us
equally
a-
as big.
Yeah.
Maybe bigger, maybe bigger.
Uh-huh.
It's gonna take some time to talk through. But let me just give the highlights. So what I've included in your packet, this was kind of the tail end of the safety discussion that we had with Kimball and Associates a few weeks back. I wanted at that time to quantify like the top 3 concerns of the district, the top 5 concerns at each one of the sites. That's what I've included in the packet today. I only have 5 minutes. Top 3 concerns were visitor access, management and controls. We talked about a system called Raptor. That's just one system that's out there, and that's visitor management and control. It's essentially badging for school sites, standardizing badging, and giving the district the ability to swipe someone's ID and do some form of a background check if we wanted to toggle that feature on. There's a lot more to it, but I only have a few minutes. Second top concern for the district was enhanced training for staff. And as I included in the packet, estimated costs associated with training for the staff and professional development, it tiers, right? So this year we've been doing some training. Next year we'll need more training, and then there's ongoing. I highlighted A through E. Those are all of the trainings that were highlighted by Kimball and Associates, not necessarily provided by MC Kimball and Associates, but that were recommended through the assessment that was done. And many of these are a statutory requirement. So everything from the incident command structure, ICS 100 through 700, to campus supervisor training, active intruder training, and multidisciplinary behavioral threat and risk assessments. Sorry, I'm speaking very quickly. The third component was that rose to the top was streamlining communication within the district towards the community. So this is one with no cost. This is something that we as a district can work on internally. I've highlighted those here for you in the packet as well. Essentially, communication practices above and beyond your simple catapult messaging, email messaging, what we can do to engage our students more, right after the fact, after an incident, during an incident, through our public address systems, maybe doing videos with the superintendent and law enforcement thereafter. There's many components that we internally need to work on. We had a public input session at the middle school where we took a lot of notes as well. That was above and beyond the report that was submitted by Kimball, but that was the top three that rose to the top. Again, I don't have a lot of time, so let me just try to summarize the costs associated if you'd like, unless you want me to go through each one of them site by site. I know
It's just such an important
It is, I
topic
know.
that I wonder if,
yeah, I can bring it back.
and maybe we have the safety committee here or something. I don't know if that's been established yet, but we're not going to do anyone service by rushing. Josh, you deserve to have time to present it, and the community needs to hear it too.
We will bring it back, absolutely.
perfect.
Yes.
Let's
And,
do that.
yeah,
That was
there's a
very
lot of work
impressive,
done.
Emma.
Yeah.
Well, we got the top three.
That's
Now we have the sites to talk about and then how much it's going to cost the district. So we'll bring it back. Thank you.
Okay, great suggestion. So,
That's no.
No,
There
no.
there was a lot to talk about on both topics,
Yeah.
and you know what? Yeah.
so much to cover, so much to cover, so. Okay. Now, with that, Director Rogeman and item B, LCAP overview, right?
Correct.
All right, well, I'm just going to do a quick little introduction before Director Rogeman begins, but, just to be sure that we know what we're reviewing tonight. And this is really just an opportunity. As you know, we have really gone out this year and really tried to engage our community, engage our students, our staff as much as possible in the development of the LCAP. And so we're really proud. I think that's what I want to say first of all. And I look at Director Rogeman and just the amount of time and hours that have gone into that himself, because this is, a big part of his role. And, in my former district and I know other districts, this is a job in and of itself. So, it's one of his roles that he does. So I just want to, commend you and thank you for your heart and commitment that you put into the work, Mr. Rogeman. But ultimately, I think I'm so proud of just, the feedback that we've gotten from our community through this. I think that's going to be invaluable as we, start working towards our actions and developing that plan. And so really a big part of what tonight will be is Director Rogeman is going to share with you sort of a summary of a big part of that input that we've received. And remember, there are two portions to that. We've had our input meetings, but also we had our survey. And so we have survey data that we, are able to go through and share a summary of there as well. And so, we're not at the point yet where we're actually giving actions yet, that will come in the coming weeks. But I think it's an important part for you all to understand, the amount of work and time that goes into this and how much, input. It's not just us sitting in a room saying, oh, let's go ahead and create an action for this because we think that's important, right? It really is taking what we've heard and using that towards, devising the plan itself. So it's my pleasure at this time to direct it over to Director Rogeman, who will lead us through the process, the timeline, and ultimately, how we're going to be designing those actions and goals. So thank you, Director Rogeman.
Dr. Adamson, thank you so much for the introduction and for being there side by side as we've been going through and doing all this work to gather the community input. And yes, it's work, but it's also, one of the best parts of this job is when we are able to get out and meet the folks that we're representing, in order to do the best work that we can for our children. And so with that, I'm just going to kind of give you a little bit of an overview of what we've done in order to gather the input that's going to inform our local control and accountability plan, and also start to give you a little bit of a taste of some of the feedback that we have been getting. And so we just kind of want to give you a scope of what we've done to gather, and then also a little bit of the information that we have received. Part of what we do when we're gathering the input is I wanted to show you kind of how it fits into the timeline of the development of the LCAP. And I know that you have this in your packet and the public has a chance to read it and follow along too. So I'm not going to read every bullet, but we basically started by building a timeline for the development of the LCAP that we're going to use for 2024 through 2027. And it's going to culminate in June of 2024 when we bring forward the final draft, hopefully to get the approval of the Board of Trustees. And you can kind of see some of the steps we've taken along the way to do this. This is a little bit easier way to process that. Okay, so this shows you sort of what we have left with regard to the timeline. So we're going to have a parent advisory committee meeting. It says here on April 23rd, it's actually going to get moved back to April 30th. So we have a little bit more of the input ready to give that parent advisory group, and we will have flushed out some of the actions that are going to go along with the LCAP by that time. And so then we are going to actually sit down and write the LCAP draft between basically this evening and the middle of May. And then while we do that, we also have our colleagues at the Monterey County Office of Education that really helps to make sure that we're following the template that the state has given us. When we follow the template that the state has given us, what that means is we're meeting all of the requirements that we have to meet for the LCAP. The person that we work with there is Director Michelle Ramirez, and she's great. She happens to live in town, so when we meet, she stops in on the way to work. I've got a cup of coffee waiting for her, and we sit down and we can have a good hour and a half before she goes in. So access from the Monterey County Office of Education has been great. We got our board packet info due on May 13th. We'll hold the public hearing on May 23rd, and then we'll make any edits that we have based on the public hearing that we have at that school board meeting. There might be some changes and things that go along with the plan. And then the board packet info due is on May 27th, and then it's going to go before the board for action at our meeting in June. The guiding principles for developing this LCAP, we've really worked with Derek Williams and the Black Leaders and Allies the collaborative to really come up with principles that we think all of our families will have as far as an interest for their children. And so as we go to build this plan, what's really guiding us is a sense of belonging for our children, safety, and then ultimately the prosperity of all of our families. So what I think that is going to be pretty easy to see is how these guiding principles are going to make their way into our goals and our actions. And everything that we do is either going to help to increase student belonging, student safety, or help put our students on a path of being college or career ready. And that's really the mission that we feel that we're following. Our LCAP focus areas for our goals, 3 of them are similar to what we've had in the past. One of them is new. We're going to be looking at that overall academic program and school safety. And I think that one of the things you're going to see in the feedback section is that safety is a real priority for everybody in the district. And by everybody, I mean our families, our staff, and our students. All of those groups that we've talked with, safety has come up as a concern for them. We're also going to be looking once again at having goals and actions around the social emotional learning for our students. I think that, you know, the pandemic kind of brought social emotional learning to the forefront of our consciousness. I don't think that it was ever something that should not have been in the forefront of our consciousness. And so when we look at the feedback that we've gotten from our families and from our students and from our staff, this absolutely is going to be an area where we're going to want to keep writing goals and actions. Number 3, we're looking at the intervention and support for our specific student groups. This is one of the requirements of the LCAP and is also an emphasis of the district. When we're talking about equity for all of our students, we need to look at our disaggregated student groups, see how they're progressing, and then try to think of the interventions and supports that are going to help all of our students access all of the programs at our schools. And then finally, number 4, this cultural proficiency is also going to be one of the goals for our district. And if we were going to reorder them, this would be first. This has been in the forefront of the work that we've been doing this year. And in terms of trying to build a more equitable system for all of our students, our emphasis and our work around cultural proficiency is absolutely critical to that. So these are going to be the 4 focus areas that we've developed. Based on the feedback that we've gotten from our groups, we feel that we'll be able to serve any of the needs that were mentioned by serving these 4 focus group areas. The educational partner input groups, what you're going to see are some of these are in black font, some of them are in green. The black font are groups that have existed and that we've talked to in the past. The green are the groups in the meetings that are new this year that mark an extended approach to the outreach that we've done. So we have 5 parent ed advisory groups, and this is a working group of parents from each one of our schools, representing multiple groups of our students. And this group gave initial feedback on the LCAP mid-year report. I think that you'll remember that we brought to the board in the month of February. And so our parent ed advisory group gave us some real good feedback to bring back to the board when we reported out about the mid-year. The LCAP student ed advisory groups are new this year, and we've already met with a student advisory group from each one of our schools. As we get some of the actions that are going to support our goals, we want to take them back to the students and kind of get their reflection on those goals. So we've met with the high school, the middle school, Robert Down and Forest Grove students. We also met with the LCAP District English Learner Ed Advisory Committee. We had one meeting district-wide. There's also multiple meetings going on at our sites that are required to have an English Language Ed Advisory Committee. If you have 30 or more students at your site that are English learners, then you're required to have an English Learner Advisory Committee. We also had 2 LCAP community input meetings. The first, we had several groups that talked about each one of the 4 focus areas that we were going to form goals under. And so we captured about 15 pages of notes from those groups. And we're going to go through some of the findings a little bit later on from that first meeting. The second meeting, we talked a little bit about some of the overall data that we received from the family surveys throughout the district. We're going to be able to dive a little bit deeper into the survey data here today and be able to apply some of the filters to those so we can look at the dashboard in a more live sense. And then let's see, we also did an LCAP survey for the first time this year where we surveyed our families, our students, as well as our staff. And then we also are going to talk with our bargaining units, both the PGTA and the CSEA, specifically about goals and actions and if they align with their view as well. Okay, when we're looking at our other educational partner input, this is input that we've gotten that wasn't formally labeled, branded as an LCAP meeting. But our superintendent has done listen and learn meetings with students, staff, families, and community members. And I think you said that by this evening you would have crested the 200 mark. Is that true, Dr. Adamson? Very impressive amount of meetings since November. And so with leadership kind of guiding the way, it's a great example for reaching out to our community. And we feel like we're going to build a culture of input gathering. And we have a great example to follow. Also, we had a PGUS community safety meeting at the middle school. I want to say that was probably about 3 weeks ago. And we got some great input from, I want to say we had about 14, 15 people in attendance at that meeting, which generated several more pages of notes and another good source of input with under the specific topic of safety in the district. We also had a cultural proficiency committees that have been meeting throughout the year. So the input and guidance that we're getting from our site teams has also will also inform the actions that are going to go along with our goals. And then we also had a PGUSD community input meeting on our cultural proficiency implementation plan. And so that input has informed our implementation plan, which is going to inform the goals that we build for the LCAP. As far as PGUSD site input, we have school site councils at each one of our sites. I know that several of you have served on school site councils, so you understand the direct influence and input that you have. We have parent-teacher student associations at each one of our schools that hold regular meetings and receive both formal and informal input. We also have our student council and leadership groups at our schools, and then the English language advisory committees that are site-based also provide site input. And then there's also district-wide meetings with site personnel. So there's the management team meetings where all of the principals of the school come together with the management team. And so we gather input from each one of the site leaders. We also have special education team meetings. Really proud of Director Cork Anthony, who holds those monthly. And there's certain times of the month when we're not allowed to get anywhere near this room because she has it booked and her entire team fills the room. But those meetings are so important so you can have alignment in practice throughout the district. And then the input that we gather from Director Cork Anthony is going to be drawn from those meetings to help inform the LCAP as well. Also, Director Cork Anthony has mental health and counseling team meetings. And so they are also able to give her the feedback that can really kind of help us form our goals, especially in that area of social emotional learning. And then the PGUSD Tech Committee that was formed when we passed Measure A and implemented that. Director Binder has members from each one of the sites that sit on that committee with him. And what I think is really positive with those meetings is they all start off with a check-in on how things are going at the sites. And that's when you find out like real person to person, what are the needs of each one of the sites, and then they take steps to try to address those needs. And then the safety meetings that we have district-wide and site-wide. And then we just want to talk a little bit about the Board of Education's role in the LCAP process. The first part, you can check it off. You've already done it. And that is to receive a LCAP mid-year report. And then tonight's meeting is where we're going to start to get some feedback during the educational partner summary. And then also give us feedback and then facilitate the community input during the public hearing when this comes before the board at a meeting. And then also approve the LCAP at a regularly scheduled board meeting at the end. I'm going to pause and take a quick drink of water. And then we can talk a little bit about some of the feedback that we've gotten from our various groups. Starting off, we're going to talk a little bit about the student advisory group at Forest Grove. One of the things that the group talked about as being a positive at Forest Grove is the diversity of the school. I think this is a reflection of the instructional staff's emphasis on pointing out and celebrating the diversity that we have at Forest Grove. The students that were involved in giving feedback were third, fourth, and fifth grade students, and you could tell that it had been, that our teachers are bringing these lessons into the classroom. A couple of the students spoke specifically about the EL education curriculum that we piloted during the spring quarter for having, diverse materials make up the program. It isn't like there's a program that has diverse materials in it. I think that was the biggest thing that they noticed with that. Also, they talk about how teachers do a good job of meeting their individual needs, and then they like the many quality food items that they have. So I wanted Director Silvera to be aware of that, we're getting thumbs up there. As far as what we could improve, the cleanliness of the bathrooms, there are two main restrooms at Forest Groves, and they're pretty heavily used. And the students said if we can do something to improve the cleanliness there, that would be helpful. Basketball hoops, they don't like the double rims that are on the basketball hoops. They like the single rim hoops. And then also just the playground conditions from time to time. And wanting just to improve that. I'm not remembering specifically what they said about playground conditions. They liked that there were a lot of basketball and handball courts, and they thought that the playground was nice. They like that their classrooms don't feel small. I'm looking at the facility stuff. Okay. Also the testing, they felt that the biggest area that people get teased at Forest Grove is about their playground skill. So if someone isn't very good at Foursquare, and they feel that sometimes games can, be somewhat, exclusionary, that not everyone is always welcome to play in every game. So we've got some work to do in that area. When we look at the Robert Down Student Ed Advisory Group, they spoke to having very supportive teachers, much like the Forest Grove students did. And they too mentioned the many quality food items that they have at Robert Down. So 2 for 2 on the elementary schools for Director Silvera. There was a lot of compliments about science, STEM, and math, at Robert Down, that they really enjoyed the science lessons. They talked about how the science lessons, where the answer wasn't always what the teacher thought it was going to be. So you can see that there are some discovery type, activities that are going on, and those are highly engaging for the students at Robert Down. And then they also complimented the diversity of the school and felt that it was a very welcoming school as well. In terms of things to improve, they would like to have clear consequences that change the behavior that needs to be changed. And so that was one of the things that came up there, that if the consequences were clear, they felt it might have a better opportunity to improve the behavior that needs to be improved. They also talked about the basketball hoops and not liking the double rims. And the playground conditions, they're mostly talking about the swampy, wet area that exists by Spruce Street. I don't know if you've seen that on campus there. And then again, it was interesting that teasing for playground skill was once again, I think that if you're looking at something we could work on district-wide at the elementary from a social emotional standpoint on the playground, the teasing that has to do with playground skill would be a good place to start. Yes.
I don't want it to. Thank you. I don't want the thought to leave my head. I'm taking notes here too, but because it has come up twice, I wanted to just jump in here too. When there's talk about teasing for playground skills, how was that do you recall, was that a question that was answered in a certain way that came back and the student said this happened, or was it just kind of open-ended, and what's going on with you?
So after we talked about things that made students feel connected to their school and talked about, some of the lighter issues, we did turn the conversation to what people get picked on for, or where does bullying happen? And that was the topic that came up the most in the conversation that we had with the students.
Okay, great. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
I
you know what,
I didn't want to lose.
I understand. We also are going to have survey data, and especially in the secondary, they broke it down by the kind of bullying that could occur, and we can take a look at some of that data a little bit later on. Okay. Any other questions?
It's just a comment. I am so happy that there are student advisory groups. I mean, this is the only way to get realistic data, that we are not making assumptions. This is just, yeah.
And when Dr. Adamson and I talked about it, the requirement is to have a student on the parent, advisory groups. If that's the only requirement, is to have one student that was involved. But we felt that we'd get a better representation of student voice if we actually went to each school assembled a diverse group of students and just sat down and had a conversation with them and bought them pizza, right? So,
Of course.
yeah. Um,
Domino's probably.
Although I have to say what was being served may have been better than that. So.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yeah, it was correct. You know, the teachers recommended students, and I asked the teachers to send diverse students. So not all students that may be scoring blue in math and English and language arts, and not all students of the same ethnic makeup too. So.
Right.
Yeah.
And just for the record, and I know I started it too, it's like, and a member of the audience was not on mic when that question was asked, but Director Rogan was answering a question about how the students
were chosen.
picked for
Correct.
for the advisory.
Right.
committee.
And in the
So-
secondary level, the school administrators worked with, teachers and counselors to assemble a team that they, and I believe that there was some crossover between the WASC feedback team at the high school. Yeah.
Right. And we will come back for public comment and
Right.
and board comment too. So again, my apologies. I started it.
I echo that question.
That's right.
So, I broke the rules. So anyway, Director
That was
Rogan,
wonderful.
please proceed.
Have some clear consequences for it. Right. For PG Middle School Student and Advisory Council, like I said, we opened up with the question about connection to the school. And when we met with the middle school students, they said that one of the things that makes them feel connected to their school is the advisory period that they've built into the schedule. And part of the reason why, as they said, is because that's when they have the content that's related to their Character Strong program. And they said that not all of those lessons necessarily are great, but some of them are. And so I think that speaks a little bit to the value of a program like a Character Strong, to have something that is in place, because it also talks a little bit about what the school stands for. And so the students are picking up on that. They also really liked a lesson about how to make students with disabilities feel more welcome and accepted at the middle school. That was one that the student was able to speak specifically to the subject matter. They feel like the feeling of community is great at the middle school. And we talked about the disability awareness activities as well. As far as things to improve, they felt that safety is a primary concern at the middle school. And that makes sense based on the events of this year. And, Trustee Otmar, this is where going to the students is really important, because I don't know if we would have known just how impactful that event was unless we sat down and talked with the students, because they spoke specifically about the guy who came into school and wandered by a classroom. So, yeah, this was before the incident on the track, just FYI. The support from teachers and staff when students struggle, they feel like the teachers are wonderful at the middle school. I think that it's harder to find support when they struggle at the middle school than maybe it is at the elementary level. So I think that at the secondary level, it's a little bit more of a challenge to figure out ways to support the struggling students there. And then they also would like to have more access to elective classes. And that's always a challenge in the middle school master's schedule. And I know that all of you know, I don't know if anyone listening in on the public knows, but there is the ability to take a first period PE class that opens up the opportunity to take an additional elective during the school day. So it's an early rise though. Okay, so for the PG High School Student Advisory Group, the positive input, when we asked them what makes them feel connected to the school, they really talked about gathering as an entire school. And the times that they do that is at rallies and also at the assemblies. So, this again was an eye opener for me. And I think it is an important message about having preconceived notions about what our students are thinking without sitting down and talking to them to hear what they're really thinking. Because I didn't think it was like cool or enjoyable to do the rallies and assemblies anymore. And evidently it is. What the students talked about was feeling valued if they were in the band and having the whole school hear them play. If they're, and they said they loved like watching the dance team, the cheer team, and the other students that performed. The students spoke highly of the visual and performing arts, activities at the high school, as well as the culinary program. And then also sports and other activities at the high school. Things that they could improve, the things that made them feel disconnected is kind of the small town impact. And I understand this. When students have established a friend group early in their PG career, it can follow them all the way through high school. And what's interesting is it's kind of connected to the next bullet, is that at times when they talked about bullying, they talked about how it occurs sometimes within a friend group, but then among friend group to friend group, right? So that there's, and I think that the other data will show that the majority of that kind of bullying is verbal or social in nature. And what they felt like was some family education was necessary so that families understood kind of what was going on in terms of bullying that might be occurring at the high school. They also talked about clarity with regard to the disciplinary consequences, and then also to present diverse materials in a variety of media. They really complimented the English department for assembling diverse materials for students to read. One of the interesting comments that was made, though, they're so honest. Well, one of the students said the problem is the people who need to read the book the most don't read it. And so what they did was they talked about, presenting the materials in a variety of media so that more students could access the content that we're trying to teach. All right, so we also talked to our English learner Ed advisory committee. And one of the things that they mentioned as being positive were the efforts to diversify the curriculum that is going on within the district. And then kind of the homework club that has been established at Forest Grove that Ms. Smallwood is running, that's a good, safe place for the English learners at Forest Grove to be able to gather. And a follow-up comment from one of our world language teachers, she talked about the possibility of establishing like Multicultural Monday and have a gathering place for EL students and students who might also be of the same culture but not still be English learners coming to her room at lunchtime once a week to just have a place, or maybe it might be nice to speak your own language at school, speak your native language and get a little bit of a break from having to speak English all day. So I thought that was an interesting idea, and it's something that could be funded in the form of a lunch club. As far as things to improve, they talked about peer tutoring to assist the newcomers to our district. Have some peers that might be available that speak the same language that can kind of help tutor them, and then other survival support for the newcomers. They say that that they felt like they need a minimum of like 3/4 of intensive support to kind of smooth that transition from knowing no English to knowing some. And then also they felt like it was important for all of the teachers to know who their recently fluently English proficient students were. RFEP students, right? The students who have just cleared the English proficiency test felt that it was important for teachers to know who those students were. And so we worked together with Director Binder, and there's the ability to put a marking in Synergy that can identify a student as a RFEP student for teachers. So now when they pull the student up, that designation is going to be present and clear for the teacher. So that's something that we did just as a result of that meeting. The PGUSD Parent Ed Advisor Group, the group has done so much, but some general areas of improvement. When we talked at the mid-year report, they talked about addressing the A through G completion rate of our students. So we're working with the counselors at the high school and the high school, administration to put some processes in place that can help us track that more effectively. One of the things that Mr. Binder has created for the high school is a document. Well, it's a report that is easy to access on every student. So we can see if every student is on pace to fulfill the requirements and also what they still have left to fulfill. So we think that in terms of monitoring our students, that could help bring a step forward, but that's an action that'll be noted. Also, the parents talked about continuing the toolbox and Character Strong and having those kind of social emotional learning programs available for our students. Also talked about addressing the chronic absenteeism in our schools. So I think that what we're going to be looking at is a monitoring and follow-up system and see what we can develop through the LCAP process so that we can have kind of an early warning system for students that might be chronically absent from school. Also, they talked about efforts to boost our parent engagement, peer-to-peer tutoring and mentoring, post-graduation monitoring. Our parent advisory group would like to know what our students do when they leave PGUSD. So I haven't followed up on that one yet. The percentage of students who reported missing school for feeling sad, stressed out, or anxious was at 34% when we looked at some of the data. And then the verbal and social bullying in our categories, the ones that reported that it happened many times or happened weekly was 24% of our students. That was the bullying category that was the highest. And so they felt like that was an important area to address as well. The input meetings. So the input meetings, we're going to go through each goal area bit by bit, starting with the academic program. Talked about better security for our campus, age-appropriate safety discussions for our children, communicate how discipline is handled, and be consistent. So I think that that's a repeating theme from families and children alike. A broad course of study. Want to make sure we have a variety of programs, especially in the area of the enrichment type programs. Additional intervention, like us to address bathroom safety when we're talking about safety. The facilities upkeep, they talked about the aging facilities that we have. And then come up with a power outage contingency plan in terms of like backup generators. So maybe we could get to the end of a day. Can continue the summer reading intervention, and then also the A through G completion and college counseling for our students. When we looked at our social emotional learning areas for improvement, talked about opportunities for parental engagement, ways to decrease isolation, student mental health, greater engagement and connection with students, adults being consistent and fair, parent education regarding school attendance, mental health counselors, emphasis on student relationships with adults, and then some conflict resolution training for staff. Input areas in terms of intervention and support. Have the intervention programs during the school day if possible and not after. I think that was important with a lot of our students that have obligations that are outside of the school day. Have a community resource liaison. Reduce the homework for students. And then can continue the work we've done in terms of grading for equity and grading for mastery. And then also EL support, that should say EL students support small group instruction, and project-based learning and tutoring. Those are the things that kind of came up in terms of intervention and support. When we looked at cultural proficiency and some areas for improvement, one of the things that came up was the bias prevention program. So one of the calls that we've heard is for a consistent, aligned bias response protocol throughout the district. What also we have a call for is what can we do to prevent incidents of bias in the first place. Know how to report incidents, call for better communication during and after an event. And they're talking about both on an individual level, and then if it's a major event, on the community level as well. More opportunities for students to learn about our cultures, civic engagement, more support for students who are the targets of bias, and then also to celebrate our diverse cultures. Okay, I'm going to pause there and see if there's any questions or comments before we jump into kind of the live demonstration of the Qualtrics dashboard. President Swanson, yeah, how would you?
Let's go. Yeah, we will. Jump in here to public comment. Give a break too for questions. Is everybody okay with that? It's a long presentation, really amazing, thorough too. But let's
She's Victoria.
Okay.
Ellie, maybe you can just lean your mic over. There you go.
Oh, hello. I know, I'm talking about you. Mr. Bogerman, I would first of all like to thank you for all of putting this whole thing together. You know, Victoria was part of the pilot program in Miss Anderson's class, and also loved the fact that she was part of the survey. And both those two together, you know, we just saw such a difference in the past like 2 months with our daughter. And so that pilot program that she tells us about includes, you know, talking about diversity and, you know, how other, you know, cultures and how they learn. And it's opened her eyes, and it's probably one of the best curriculums that I've ever seen this district adopt. If they adopt it, it's a pilot program now, but I would encourage it. And so I just want to say that there are some alarming things, you know, obviously on this, that are very alarming, but I wanted to, you know, first start with something positive. And she's sitting on my lap right here, and you know, thank you.
Well, and just so folks know too, one of the books that they read was a book about building a school in Chad, I believe, right? Yeah, and you know, just to have students having a conversation about, you know, well, and learning about the country Chad, you know, that, pardon me? Brain School, that's right, yeah.
Brain
And clearly, I mean, she's able to remember the title, and you know, yeah, that's great.
Is the data from the meeting gonna be presented today or from the?
Yes. So we're going to do the survey. I'm just pausing at this point to go over the verbal feedback that we've gotten, and then we're going to go over the survey data. Correct. Yeah. Or you know what? It's not my meeting to run. I'm sorry, President Swanson.
That's okay. I get it too. There's a lot that's being presented, and I don't think taking a little bit of a pause is a bad idea, but let's just jump back in.
Okay.
If anybody is online, make your notes, and we're going to come back for public comment and board discussion too, but let's just keep rolling.
Okay. You have some examples of what the Qualtrics dashboard looks like in the presentation, but I thought that I think we're probably better off spending some time going to the dashboard, if that's all right with you, Superintendent Adamson. So I'm going to just kind of show how it can be broken down if I can move this bar. All right, so I am open to what the board would like to see. We can go to the student dashboard, or we can go to the family dashboard. The staff dashboard, I don't think is fully assembled yet. Do we have a preference?
Board, anybody?
Would you like me to choose? Well, I'm going to start with the students. I'm going to go to the
Yeah.
most important group that we serve.
There you go.
So when you log into the dashboard, or when I log into the dashboard, I'm going to move this so I can see. What you're going to, there's going to be a public facing dashboard that is very similar to the one that you're looking at. There's going to be some access to the filters for the public as well. And Superintendent Adamson and I are working with Qualtrics now to decide just exactly what that board is going to look like and what the cutoffs are going to be. So when filters are applied, if a number is too small to retain the anonymity of the group, then the public won't be able to access that. But as long as the numbers are big enough to where anonymity can still be maintained, the public is going to have access to apply filters and see the data that they want to see on these. Okay, so you can see that there's like a school breakdown, there's a grade level breakdown, and then there's a race and ethnicity breakdown. So when you look at the students that took the survey, these are all of our students in grades 3 through 12 that took the survey. And you can see on the side, there's different categories for the survey. And so when we look at the learning environment, experiences, and relationships, you have the top two, or you've got like an average score, and then you've got the top two compared to the bottom two. The top two are the darker blue. The bottom two are the lighter blue. And when I hover, you can kind of see the agreement there. So the top response under learning environment and experiences. And I think we'll start with all students. No, you know what? Well, so these graphs we are doing live. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I should just put my packet.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Put the packet down, look at the screen that you can best see. And we'll start to look at the data that we're going through. You sure can. You can use this, do whatever kind of rearrangement that you would like. So this is under the learning environment, experiences, and relationships. And you can see the two categories that rate the highest. Okay, so on the left, they are rated by the highest average score down to the question that had the lowest average score. On the right, you see a comparison between the two highest responses and the two lowest. So the highest were adults at my school treat me with fairness and respect. And this is all grades together. So for example, if what you wanted to see was, well, how much does that change when we look at high school? Then you can click on 10, 11, and 9, and it changes. And you can see that's not right.
What's the phone with a live demo?
Gotta refresh it. Right, that's what we do when we're in doubt. Yeah, that's right. So that was not a high school. Either that or we got a goose egg on that one, right? Yeah. But so then the highest one is I'm learning new things in my classes. And the second highest was I feel like I belong. Okay. They're not. Look at that. Okay, well, there we go. I can go to the longest one, which is my school expects very good work from me. And it looks like the ones on the right are sorted though.
Yeah.
So then when we're looking at where we need to improve, we kind of go from the bottom up rather than the top down, right? So one area where we can improve at the high school is I never have homework assigned on school breaks, right? And this came out to 58% of the students disagreed or strongly disagreed with that statement. My school rewards students who do the right thing. And then I feel like I belong at my school. That's still, you got a lot neutral, but that kind of gives you a peek in. So then at the high school, if we want to start to look at different ethnic groups, see how many responses we have. If you look at our African-American students, right, what comes out the highest over here is my school expects very good work from me. And the other one that comes out the highest is I'm learning new things in my classroom. As far as the strongest response, sure. Oh, okay, sorry. The lowest averages other than I feel like I belong. I feel like I belong.
But
at my
that's the
school.
lowest response.
Right. Yeah, that was the lowest average. Lowest average was I never have homework assigned on school breaks. Another 2.0. And those were the two lowest. The two highest were there is at least one teacher or staff member at school who makes me feel excited about my future. And my school expects very good work from me. The lowest was I feel like I belong.
And I mean, that coincides with all students as well. I mean, for me, 52% of our students indicated that they, only 52% felt that they belong. And so that's, just too low for us, right? Hence, belonging being one of our core values, right, that we're going to be identifying as a strong theme for our LCAP and theme. Yeah.
And we're not going to have time to go through all of our ethnic groups, but just wanted to show you the power of the survey data, right? That we're going to have at our disposal. This is the Hispanic students, and you'll see that what is our highest? Our highest response, my school expects very good work from me. And our lowest response, I never have homework on breaks. And my school rewards students who do the right thing. Yes, those are the two lowest. The highest, as far as this, is my school expects very good work from me. The lowest is I know about the opportunities to be involved in school activities, events, and programs. And I never have homework assigned on school breaks. And then, they were at 43% for feeling like they belong at school. The technology questions that we asked had to do with access at home, right? I have a computer or other technology device that I can use, and strong numbers throughout each grade level. Oh, sure. You bet. Thank you. Okay. So if we go through the same process, I'm learning new things in my class. My school expects very good work from me, so that was pretty common. Never have homework assigned. That was common. And my school, I know about the opportunities to be involved. I feel like I belong. Was at 63% that agreed or strongly agreed.
I know I would consider the neutral group, right? We would need to, I mean, the fact that they don't seem to have an opinion on that is not a good thing either, right? So yeah, no, no. Yeah, yeah.
Neutral, I think, presents an opportunity though. Yeah, yeah. As far as if we're looking at movement. That's absolutely that the more you're involved in a school, the more you're likely to be, engaged. All right, I'm going to keep us moving so that we have some time to discuss too. Basically, the technology results were pretty strong in all areas. So I have a computer or other device that I can use at home, 95%. I use technology such as computers to help me learn in class. This is an elementary question about IXL. So how about if we break down the entire thing by ethnicity instead of just going by grades?
Director Rugman, I'm going
Yes.
to just make a suggestion
Sure.
that, based on a lot of the feedback we've had and based on time,
Sure.
safety rose to the top as
Got it.
an area of concern. I would, bullying, I think is definitely an area I think that ties in there. And then your student mental health.
Mhm.
Maybe we identify those three as ones we want to look through next, if the board is in agreement with that, right? And
Yeah, I
then
just
we
want to
can
make sure
see
there's
how that
plenty of
takes.
time for
Correct,
discussion.
yes, indeed, yeah. So when we pick those three, and then we can move over to the parent one if we want to for a little bit, and then move to discussion. Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, I want to caution your response to this first one that says, I feel safe at my school. I don't trust the data that we got on this where it says 11%. And the reason that I don't trust it is the California Healthy Kids Survey was in complete contrast to this data. And remember that in that we survey kids in 5th, 7th, 9th, and 11th grades. And the 5th grade total across the district was at 73% that felt safe. The 9th grade, the 7th grade, the California Healthy Kids was at about 69%, as was the 9th grade, and the 11th grade was at 68. So we need to go back and look at this question. And I mean, it seems obvious. I feel safe at my school. I almost feel like when they reported it out, they got it flipped based on the other data that we have. So I will look into that one. Okay. Okay, so that's the safe at school data. And if you can make a quick note for us to ask Ryan about that the next time that we meet with him. All right, so the school resource officer data there is for all students. That's the second bar. And then I wouldn't know what to do at school during an emergency because we have done safety drills. That was 93% and 4.6. So that part of safety, I don't know is going to be super helpful. Would you like to see it broken down and disaggregated?
I'm really worried about time. I mean, I like seeing this, but I really want to have good time for us to dig
You
in
got
and
it.
discuss.
Okay.
Thank you for showing, but
You bet. Bullying. Okay. So there's elementary schools data, and then there's secondary. So the elementary school data is on top. I understand what action the school will take when I report an act of bullying. Came in at about 4.3 average, which is pretty high. You could see that it was 71% felt that they knew. Sorry, we're on only white. Let me make that all. 68.7 total. And the bathroom question, bathrooms at our school are safe and free from bullying. And there was 83% that agreed with that statement. Sorry. Thank you. Yeah. Hardest area to supervise. Would you like to see any of that data broken down? Okay. So the secondary bullying data is pretty fascinating. There's multiple categories. There's electronically, gender, physically, racially, socially, verbally. So you can see why the social and verbal stand out so much compared to the rest of the data. Are you able to see the scale? Yes, you are. So weekly, I don't know. Many times, once or twice or never. Me too. That when I looked at this data, I thought that that would have been higher. There's actually several I thought would be higher. Physically, I thought would be higher. And then I was thinking back to my own high school experience and my own grade school experience. And the once or twice, I would have had to answer yes for almost every category that's on there. Well,
Hey, me neither, man. I'd have to mark that off.
so I'm a little sad now. Yeah. Understood. I think here it is helpful for us to take a look and maybe look at all of our students of color because we're able to do that too. So when we look at this, are there any other categories or any other filters the board would like to apply? Tell you what, how about this? How about if we look at this? Kind of take a look at the gray and the light blue numbers and add them up for the category that you're interested in. Look at the light blue and the gray. Okay, and then we'll go back to just all. Let's see if the lines move much. Do the lines move much? Okay. Student mental health? All right. It's another flaw in the dashboard, Dr. Adamson, that we have to look at. We don't have the question for that item, for that yes/no question.
You hover over to the top now?
No. So over here, during the year I've met with, and you can check all of them that apply. Sorry, let's go back to all.
That's just a coding issue in the question in there.
Yes.
That should be-
So there was a question and we have a response. We just don't know what the question is. It is for the secondary side, but over on this side, there is another question. And I can't remember what it was. So further down, do you know whom to go to for help for personal reasons? And elementary was 79% that responded yes, and 21% that said no. Secondary was a little bit different. We said, I know there is a mental health therapist on campus. And so the numbers were actually very close, right? It was 78 and 22. Well, how about that's pretty much what I have in terms of a presentation, for the data. How about if I exit so that people can see our folks that are talking talk?
Okay. That's a lot. So it's like, that's a lot. Thank you. Just going in order here too. It's like, we move on to public comment here first. So if we have, Lewis, do we have anybody online with their hand raised with a question? All right. All right. All right. There's just so much here too. I wish there were more people that were actually online. Is this available yet for people to check out?
Not yet. So
Okay, but it will be.
You will see it on the agenda tonight in our open session because they have to design the dashboard. So
Okay,
yes, we're
okay.
coming back for that approval. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So nobody with their hand raised online. Any questions in the room? Yes, if we can get you up at the podium and with the green light on the mic. Hit the button and I'm sorry, I
Okay, so thank you so much for adapting the presentation from what was on the agenda so that we could see, for ourselves how to find the information. That was really great. Also, I looked through the new book, the AP book that's out there for the the literature that you introduced, and in chapter 11 it talks about public polling, and I wanted to point out that it does discuss police brutality and George Floyd and everything that occurred over COVID. And so just, recognizing the importance of making sure that we see everyone in this data, making sure that we see those discrepancies, making sure that we don't envelop the Black community in data, that their voices are heard, and for this reason, that because it is a sensitive issue. And also because, we can't tell them, okay, advocate for yourself, fill out this survey, and then also say, well, you should be afraid. You should be afraid of the outcomes. If someone finds out, if you're the only one, and that is an issue that is doing a harm. And anyway, with that said, I really appreciate that you did make that accessible to the public, so that they could, find this information for themselves. And so I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Anybody else in the room for public comment and nobody online? So let's move to board discussion, comments, questions. Anyone?
No, yeah,
Sorry, I'm
no, it's
just jump in.
a lot. Thank you so much. I mean, it is so important to see this. It is so important to get through this. I don't even know where to start, but I mean, SCL is almost everything, not everything, but it is clear we have a lot there. It breaks my heart to hear that middle school students are not getting support when struggling. That was one of their most main concerns. I mean, that's what we're here for, right? Is the kids. So that's something I would love. I'm looking forward to digging into. I know it came up when I was on South Council at the middle school. Is the first period PE class for electives is great, but as you said, it's a 7:40 start time. So is there a way we could have an after school opportunity for PE that would open up the same ideas for electives? So I brought that up. I brought that up on side council in middle school ages ago, and I know there's a bunch of, negotiations, et cetera, that would have to happen, but we know getting up early is not good for developing kids. I can speak to that also from personal data collected. The other parts, the connections, like again, the ELA learners and PG high school students both talking about peer-to-peer tutoring. Again, this is something we've heard before too. It's like having groups at the high school that could tutor the younger students. Like that, this is something that seems like a really low-hanging fruit. Is probably not the right answer, but if students want that, that's something I think we could provide those opportunities for them to have. The two, and again, I know this is not unique to PGUSD, but the percentage of seniors who are sad and miss school at 34%, the verbal social bullying, 24% many times weekly, like this, as a, not just as a board member, as a parent, kills me. I'll stop there for now.
Trustee Otmar, you want to jump in?
I have a full page of lots of things, but I mean, I think, first of all, thank you. I mean, just beyond and beyond. Thank you. Thank you for same thing I said before, including the students just in the entire process. I mean, of course, we have to get the information from the students for the survey, but just including them, perhaps that's something that can help to remedy a little bit of their voices are being heard in a way that's new. Some of the things that really stood out for me, I feel safe at my school, 70%. I feel like I didn't get that right. 70% said no.
That's the
It's-
one that
we think
I
it's
said the
flipped.
data probably is flawed.
Okay,
Right,
yeah.
because the
'cause I was
California Healthy
like,
Kids Survey is almost the mirror
Okay.
opposite. So I think
so
that
we'll cross that.
it got coded as no.
But we'll
it should have
still
been
say,
coded as yes,
even if
but
it is,
yeah.
let's say it's only 70% that actually do feel safe, that 30%, that bothers me because school should be a safe place. You can't learn if you feel like you're fearful about anything, whether that's bullying or, not being able to access help if you need it. Which brings me to the next one, which is an elementary school. Who do I go to for help? 21% don't know. And secondary, 22% don't know that there's a mental health therapist. That blows my mind. Like we're talking about social emotional learning and they don't know where to go or that there's even existence of a mental health therapist there that can help them. I can just keep going. Bullying in the bathroom. There's really, I mean, yeah, how do you monitor the bathroom? But I mean, maybe there is a way. Maybe you have someone that is a bathroom monitor. That's a student that could be part of a, I don't know. Leadership, yeah, exactly, something like that. But you can't have a teacher standing there. That would be inappropriate. But to have a student in there just to say like, I'm here and I represent everybody that's in this bathroom right now and I will keep you safe and just know that it doesn't happen at the school anymore. I don't know. The teachers, sorry, this is just going to be ranting, but the teachers care about me. Only 74.8% said yes. All of these kids, every kid should feel like they're cared about by at least one teacher. I mean, that was hard for me to read. Belonging being at 65%. I mean, all these numbers, I think we all kind of see where it is. And it's just caring, belonging, safety, you know, and I guess the piece is, you know, figuring out the detailed plan of like what we're doing now versus how we're going to adjust to correct, to move these numbers in a way that kids can go to school and feel like this is my space. This is where I can be. This is where I can exist and live and learn and become the human being that I'm supposed to be. Kids aren't going to do that if they're in fear or if they're being bullied. They can't rise to their full potential. I'm going to cry too.
Mm.
I just want to make sure that this data that we have, and of course it will, that we're going to use this to make significant changes in the way that we support our kids. And even if it's giving additional staff support, like we can't overlook that either, because if teachers are feeling overworked or pressed, or they're not trying to offend anybody, but they're just over teaching, you know, that's going to give a student a sense of nobody cares. Nobody cares. You don't even care to be here to teach me. So I remember that in high school. I remember teachers that felt like they didn't care. They just were there to clock in and clock out. I'm not implying that's what's happening here, but I'm saying it's something to look at too, that if staff is feeling overwhelmed, if there's a way to make adjustments so that they can feel more accessible. So I'll zip it. Okay. Thank you everyone for listening. And thank you again, Buck. It's just like off the charts. Awesome. No pun intended or pun intended.
Trustee McNary.
Sure. Thank you, Director Rogeman, and thank you, Superintendent Adamson, for the level of community outreach, the increase. I know is thanks to both of you, and I appreciate that you listened last year when we talked about that being a priority, because I don't think we can do this work without listening. I really see that we're headed in the right direction with regard to that, so thank you. Yeah, Laura, I think you hit a lot of it. Safety, bullying, mental health, training is a big piece. When we see conflict resolution training, that to me speaks to a lot of the issues that are raised by the students with regard to bullying or teasing or unclear consequences or change not being created after a conflict, behaviors not changing with regard to students. And I think that's the bigger cultural piece that we all know we have to address right now, is that students need to know that there will be clear consequences, and we have to have a system in place where adults are trained and empowered to enforce those consequences. And then I think we touched on it the other day with regard to training. I love the idea of conflict resolution, but we're talking about restorative justice practices. I think that has to be a part if we're going to embed it in and really do our work with regard to the cultural proficiency. That's a big piece for me. I love the middle school advisory period. That's a positive. I don't know how to grow something like that where we have built into the school day a period with the teacher that the kids already know because they have them for another class there, where it's staff driven and student driven. Some of the topics they talk about are only because of students are having issues and they mine data at that school. And as much as we can do that to find out what kids are really needing, like why they don't feel safe in the bathroom, what's going on, keep asking the questions. Oh, yeah.
You can all see and you're not having to turn around.
That's
and I
okay.
think it'll be in the camera.
It's my ADHD. It's good. All the fidgeting. I'm gonna fidget regardless, so.
Camera too, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I'll stop there for now.
Trustee Carolyn.
Thank you. I'm encouraged by the progress it seems we're having in this document and it becoming more robust each year, especially under the leadership of Director Rogeman. And now with Linda here too. So my concern, I'm zooming out a little and I'm going to think about the system of us creating this LCAP. So we heard such important data tonight. My concern, and I'd like to get some ideas on how we can make sure, my concern is that when the LCAP document comes back to the board, we're gonna be in a moment where it's kind of like rushed. Like, we need to approve this by, when does it have to be approved, Buck?
June 6th,
And
that's our last
what
meeting.
meeting is it coming to us?
It's going to come 2 weeks earlier.
Okay, so there's no room, really. So what I would encourage all of us to do, what I can think of right now, and there may be a better idea and I'm open to it, is tonight, the things that are really speaking to each of us, because we all have, and we all have fabulous community members here too are bringing up items, is make note of that. And then when that draft comes out, we need to make sure that there's robust goals in there to address these things. Otherwise, we're just talking and the document comes through again. And we don't really focus our priorities and turn them into goals that come to fruition. That's what I've seen in the past, and I'm done with it. So this is what I'm hoping happens now. I know it's in here literally that says, write goals based on data review and educational partner input in April and May, which is right now. But then when it comes to the board, we have a brief moment to make sure. And also what we're doing this year is we're shifting away from having other goal documents in our district, right? We have superintendent goals, but we're not doing like board goals, et cetera, et cetera. So the LCAP is it. It's our one chance. So that's all I can think of right now if we want to stick with this timeline, because I think we should respect the timeline. I'm sure you put a lot of thought into it and you've based your entire, your input sessions, et cetera, around it. So I'm not trying to blow that up. But I want this document, like when I open it up, I want to see a goal in there that addresses this stuff, this really important stuff. So my contribution to the idea pool is I've been dreaming of having free district paid for, but free for family, robust before and after school care. I know we have BASRP is what our district calls it at the elementary schools. I would even like for us to consider it at higher level school, perhaps even the middle school, bringing the voice of a family who has a child with disabilities. Our kids don't always become able to be at home safely by themselves just because they've gotten themselves age-wise to middle school. Also, I've seen in my experience, families who are socioeconomically disadvantaged, who have multiple siblings. They can't even afford the $6 times 2 times however many siblings they have. I have seen on like a running team that I coached, one of the exceptional runners who contributed so much to our team couldn't make it 50% of the time because they had to go home and watch their little brother because their mom couldn't afford to pay for both of them to be at BASRP. We can have educational support at BASRP, which can increase our test scores. We can make sure our kids are looked after and safe in our community. It just goes in so many ways for me. It can address safety issues and everything, but we're going to need to really look at what that looks like and make sure that BASRP is robust and isn't, and I'm not saying it is, but just make sure that it isn't, that that the adult ratios are proper, that there's structure to it. Of course, free play is excellent, but we need to have structure. We need to make sure that all the kids are being watched over, make sure when the kids are in the bathroom at BASRP, safety wise, we've got parents after school, anyone's allowed to come on campus, but we've got kids who are in BASRP roaming around, literally like in the bathroom, maybe with another kid, but that like the campus is very quiet and desolate, but we're letting anyone come on, to pick up kids or whatever. There's so much there. So if I were to have one thing that I think can help our district with allowing families to have a leg up that might not otherwise, I would say free, robust, structured, safe BASRP. That's all I got.
My turn. There is so much here, Buck. Thank you. I mean, it's and it's good probably that I can't sleep at night, because when I will be struggling to sleep once this is online too, I'll be able to click through it, and you can get lost in it. Again, there's so much. I want to know what's going on in our bathrooms at school. I mean, that's one of those things. What is happening there, and what can we do? I don't even know where to start, other than here, right? And I will say this, that in all the years now that we've been looking at the LCAP, and I think about the times when Ani Silva would present it too, and she would talk about when the LCAP first started too, and it was like 5 pages, and now it's become this thing. And now this is the first time I think that we've had this much data, right? Don't you think, Carolyn? I mean, the most that
Yes, yeah, staff,
we've
it's
never
because of the
had.
staff's motivation to do it. Yeah.
This level. So it's great. Part of it is terrifying. But I'm glad that we know. It's like I'm concerned about kids not feeling connected to their school. Again, it's like I don't know what's going on in our bathrooms. I love the idea of an after-school PE option that might open things up to, it's like there's so much here. I guess this is where we start with it. But you're right too, Carolyn. It's like we have this opportunity right now, and it's a small window of time between now and when we actually have to sign off on the LCAP to dig into it. But I think it's going to occupy our thoughts, and it should, for the next month as we move forward into that. There's just so much here. I mean, the desire for students asking us to have clearer consequences related to, like, oh, okay, I hear that. I hadn't heard that before, but I hear that now. You know, our students want clearer guidelines, so let's give them clearer guidelines. You know, I could just babble on and on. There's a lot to think about too, but I appreciate how much information you've given us, and I can't wait for it to get online too. And I wish there were more, parents right now online or in the room to get this too. And can we push this information out to them? Because I think it's also important for our parents to see what their students are saying.
When the dashboards become available, that will be something we message out to all families to make sure that they're aware that it's there. And then, they'll, be able to also view a recording of this, right? The live piece of it. But to me, having access, to our public will be.
I would really love for us to push that information out to the parents and identify very clearly what it is that we're sending to them, and that it's something that they need to take a look at, because so much of this stuff starts at home too. It's like with the bullying, what is happening, and how do we intervene? How do we send the right message? So anyway, there's all that, and we're almost out of time because we need to move into closed session too. So unless there are any other board comments, and there probably are.
I have a 30-second comment. Oh, and we need to come back to Elliot. You sure? Okay. Just my comment is, my request for the LCAP when it comes to us is to have specifics in there on how these items are going to be addressed. So I'm hoping, and I'm sure that you guys will come back with, we can't obviously have a goal for everything. We're going to start with things that are priorities, and we're trusting staff to determine what those priorities are, because you've been on the ground with the input sessions. But I really will just be so excited and like bubbly and smiley at a meeting, which is rare for me. And I will be so pleased to see specifics in there. So please.
Measurable as well.
Specifics that are measurable. Thank you, Linda.
And I think one more thing is how we're incorporating the pieces of our cultural proficiency plan as actionable items into the LCAP. Which I know that's an ongoing conversation. I just want to make sure we
I'm going to
tag
add
it
that
for
now.
today.
But the great thing about the fact we have that cultural proficiency as a separate goal now, all of those actions it's going to be listed specifically in alignment with what that plan was. So.
And so one thing, and it's actually well, I'll do that first one because I know it won't make me lose it, is the IXL that came up. That was one that was really interesting to me just because that's something I know I've heard of from a few kids, that the way it works is like you get it wrong, you have to do 5 times more work to do the next one. So that is one item. I mean, that's a very specific, but it just shows how valuable this data can be in some of the curriculum planning. And I don't know when our contract is up, but I would suggest potentially other things in IXL just based on some of the frustrations I've heard from kids on that. The other one, just, following on the point about the robust BSRP, this is another one where we've had these comments at the board meetings, about kids getting cut from sports teams and not having a community sports program. I mean, that's another way to provide opportunities for middle school kids after school. Then there's those kids that don't do sports. We have amazing clubs at the high school. I don't think we have that same structure at the middle school. And that, you also talked about sense of belonging. That's where high school students sometimes find that sense of belonging, is drama club, choir, all these things. We've heard such a, photographic arts, all these things. So I think if we could do more with clubs at the middle school potentially to help kids get that sense, tease out or figure out where they belong a little bit more, because I do think the high school is a little bit late sometimes. I think kids can get lost if they don't have that opportunity. So this presents so much opportunities the way you presented it to us. And again, that's what's really exciting. It's just, I know it'll be a lot of work, but I also have faith that, we're here for it.
I did want to just say one thing. And when the data gets pushed out and it's accessible to the public, one of the things I think about is I would like for there to be on there something that will obviously discuss the LCAP, but saying like, I just don't want there to be a sense of alarm, which there should be, but that so everyone understands that the reason that we get this data is it drives our LCAP. This is what we will do. This is how we formulate our plan to make this district better. I can see that a parent might click on data and get scared and think, what's happening, which is a logical question, but I want whoever can access that data to understand that we're moving forward with a plan with the LCAP, because otherwise it could just be, data works both ways. I don't want to create families feeling scared or feeling fearful, because that's just going to perpetuate, I don't feel safe at school. And, it could, go ahead, Buck.
Yeah, there's an interesting
Yeah.
time, Buck, can you round us out and then we can move to close session?
Right. I think that that there's a couple things. One of the things when you start to present the survey data, it can kind of drown out some of the other voice that came through in this meeting. And that there are a large number of our students that are feeling connected to their school. And they did point out some of the things that are working now. And so there's some things to build off of there. I think the other thing too is that we don't have any like nationally referenced norms to these questions either. So that's one of the things that's missing. It kind of exists in its own world. And I'm so grateful that we have it, because it is going to help us plan specific actions. But in terms of alarm, I'm hoping more. Alarm induces panic, and what I'm hoping more is that it gets attention, right? And it takes the whole sorry, it's a starter word for me. And I hope the whole community can begin to focus on and embrace our children and recognize that it's going to take a lot of people to help out, because one document isn't going to solve all our problems. But what we can do is take a good run at a number of them, right? And that's what we're hoping to do. And what this is going to do is point out what's the most important for us to do now. Keep in mind too, it's a 3-year document. And what we're doing right now is establishing in June our path forward for the next year, right? So we're going to do this every year. Yeah.
Well, and knowing that too, and one of the things that I'd written down, and I'll try to make it short here because I know we need to move into close too, but it was just like, is that I don't think we're I don't think we're an anomaly. I think so much of this stuff is happening across the country, but we're paying attention. And what we do have before us is an opportunity to be an exception, to move things, like you said, we can move things forward if we pay attention to what we're hearing. We have an opportunity to do better. And that's why everybody is in this room right now too, is to try to do that. So, and having this information is part of the process. So unless any other board members have anything they want to add, we're going to move on to closed session. And we do need to identify our closed session topics, which are negotiations, collective bargaining with PGTA, also collective bargaining with CSEA, and a third item, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, leave, complaint, Government Code 54957. And is there any public comment on our closed session topics? Online, Lewis, anybody? Anyone in the room? Okay, so with that,
Can I just say, we're going to be back at 8 o'clock, back in open session, if anyone's listening and wants to stick around.
that's the goal.
Thank you.
Yes.
We're gonna be in bed, but.
8:05.
Well, on the agenda, it says 8. I don't know.
All right, thanks, everybody. We'll be back.
Maybe we won't.
Returning from closed session. On all three items, negotiations with PGTA, negotiations with CSEA, and public employee discipline, dismissal, release, leave, complaint. Someday I'll be able to say that without stumbling over all those words. Information was shared. There was no direction given or necessary. And so now let's all stand for Pledge of Allegiance. And Lewis, would you be so kind? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Okay, so moving on now to, because this is a special meeting, in case anybody's online and wondering, we do not have letters. And we do not have board comments. It is a special meeting, but we are going to now move on to consent agenda. A number of items here. I don't actually see where we jump into. I guess first, public comment. For anybody, is there anybody online, Lewis, who's nobody online, and anybody in the room with a comment on consent? Seeing no one. Board, do we have any board comments on consent? I'm seeing everyone shaking their head no. So with that, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Also move.
Second.
Okay, so we had a motion from trustee McNary, and was that you, trustee Carolyn? Okay, so for the second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Great. Moving on to action discussion. This is adoption of resolution number 1126. And I believe Claudia is online. Do we have her to present? So turning it over to Claudia, please. We told her 8:15, so we're early.
Hello, can you hear me?
We gotcha.
I was not allowed to unmute myself. I'm like, please let me talk. Hello, everyone.
Oh, all
Claudia
right.
Arellano, Director of Human Resources. And yes, back on March 7th of this year, the Board of Trustees had previously adopted Resolution 1121, intention to terminate certificated employees due to a reduction of particular kinds of services. Pursuant to Resolution 1121, the district went ahead and sent notices to affected certificated employees before March 15th in accordance with Education Code, informing them that they would subject to layoff for the 24-25 school year. Now, Resolution 1126 allows the district administration to issue final layoff notices and to rescind layoff notices due to vacancies created through natural attrition. Under state law, school districts must provide final layoff notice before May 15 to employees whose services will not be reemployed for the following school year. So adoption of Resolution 1126 directs the superintendent or designee to give the final notice of layoff pursuant to Ed Code 44949 and 44955 to the appropriate affected certificated employees.
Thank you. Let's go out for public comment on this particular item. Louis, anybody online? No one. And anyone in the room wishing to comment? Seeing no public comment, let's move to board discussion. Board, anything to say, comment, interject? Yes.
I'll just say that I know this decision was taken very seriously and it's always a hard decision to make. And we were just talking about our LCAP and how some of the students felt that some of the strongest areas were the VAPA courses, which this, I believe, falls into. So we didn't take it lightly. It wasn't taken lightly by staff, and I don't think anyone on the board's taking it lightly either. So that's what I want to say.
Anybody else? Thank you for saying that, Trustee Swanson. It's appreciated, and I think we all agree to, yeah, absolutely. It's like it's not an easy decision to make, and I think the district has been really good about this not happening over all of those years, but every once in a while. So with that said, can I get a motion to move forward? I will make the motion to move forward for approval of Resolution 1126. Can we get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, great. So that was me making the motion and Trustee McNary with the second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Moving on now to action discussion B, Measure D&A Citizens Oversight Committee. Director Anderson. Oh, and I'm sorry, I'm not sure if Director Ariano is still online, but thank you again for presenting that. Sorry, I did not mention that before.
Good evening. I think I'm going to take the stance that we used to have where we just stand by and see if there's any questions, because I think this is kind of self-explanatory. It was just a case of voting for hopefully 6 candidates to be on the CBOC committee. So
Maybe
questions?
just a little review of what the CBOC committee is.
Okay, so that's the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. And we're at the point now where we need to reestablish the committee. And so we need to vote on new members for that committee.
So, and I'll jump in here real quick. So we have 6 candidates and 6 open positions.
Technically
Actually,
7,
right?
Technically 7, but we could operate with a consensus with 6.
Yep.
There's one category that we cannot fill because we don't have somebody that fits that.
Mm-hmm.
So we should be able to seat at least 6.
Okay. All right, thank you. Board questions? Actually, I'm sorry, public comment first. Is any public comment? No one online? Anyone in the room wishing to speak on this item? Seeing no one, no one's running towards the door to get in. So let's go to the board.
I'll go. I'm curious about the process for soliciting membership for the CBOC. I guess I'm curious about that process, like how does that happen and who is it solicited to? And then I'm curious also if there are opportunities, since we are only filling it with 6 seats and it's technically a board of 7, if there are future opportunities to advertise or find additional members.
I'm not aware of any deadline per se. If someone
Yeah.
were to come along
Yeah.
midstream and have the potential of filling that one vacant category,
Mhm.
I believe it would be no problem to seat that person if they fit. Yeah.
Okay.
And as far as when we sent out our little flyer that went out to all the citizens,
Uh-huh.
we had a little blurb in there about how to join.
Uh-huh.
And that's how we received most of our candidates.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other board questions?
Is it the taxpayer group that you don't have a member from?
That is correct.
Okay, I would like to see us find someone. Go and whatever form that is, and you can take that on if you wish, if the entire board agrees, but I would like to see us try to fill it.
To continue to advertise and really.
Maybe reach out to some of the taxpayers associations.
Mm.
Yeah.
I believe historically that actually went unseated last time as well. So I don't
Yeah,
know
I
if we
think
ever
it's
found
time to
anybody in that
fill it.
category. It's a difficult one.
It speaks to the
Yeah.
need that, yes, we can maybe be creative in different ways that we can look into it, but we can absolutely do that. Yep, we will. Okay, absolutely.
Any other board comments? All right, so, I think we're looking to approve the entire slate, correct? So, I'm looking for a motion to move forward with, what's been presented to us. Anyone?
I'll make a motion and to approve and thank the 6 applicants to the CBOC.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
And I'm sorry, I did not have my head up and my hearing is terrible. Thank you. Okay. So we have a motion from Dr. Hazen and a second from trustee Otmar. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much,
Thank
Director
you.
Anderson.
Have a wonderful.
And yes, and Dr. Hazen too. Thank you for the nod to these volunteers too. That's great. Moving on to item C, contract for services with Qualtrics, individualized dashboards for PGUSD website. Dr. Adamson, it's
Yes,
all yours.
thank you. So this has come up a few times during our study session this evening. So as you know, we contracted with Qualtrics to actually complete and do the surveys, and they were responsible for helping us obviously distribute them and then gather all of the data and help us, develop the reports and the dashboards. Unfortunately, what that contract did not include was the ability to create individualized dashboards for each of our school sites so that the public can have access to it. And so we're bringing this back for your approval. It's an additional $5,000. And, we would really like to be able to have Qualtrics go in and do that work. Obviously, it would be based on, a lot of the input that we've received tonight on what we want those dashboards to look like. But I think, I've heard loud and clear from all of you, you really would like for the public to have that ability. Definitely, I want to add the caveat to that and how we present that data, right? I think that has to come with a message as well of what we intend to do with it. And so that's also feedback we can give to Qualtrics as well as they're putting, that together for us. But really, we're just asking for your approval to approve this contract.
Thank you. Let's go out for public comment. Lewis, no one online. Anyone in the room? Seeing no one, let's move to board discussion. Board.
Hi. Yeah, I read over the contract and actually I didn't realize that that's what this contract was for. In the implementation, let me just make sure, because
Sure.
I see it in the cover sheet, so it's not a failure on staff's part, but I'm just wondering if the actual contract, because when it says deliverables, it just says implementation dashboard, public facing coding, and 2 imported data projects. I must be missing it, right? I mean, where does it say that that's what we're going to be able to do?
Well, essentially what that's covering is that it's the dashboard for each school site. So you're thinking it doesn't specify.
Yeah.
enough, right?
Like on page 130, it's 137 in my packet. It
Right.
might be 138 or something. It looks like this. It has
Yeah,
like a little dark square up top.
Yep, I'm looking at the same. Yep. Where it's a dashboard and then, public facing coding. I mean, the idea with that is, maybe it isn't specified enough. I hear what you're saying, Carolyn, but I know that's what the intention is, for them to go ahead and put that data on, that it can be accessible, by the public. What would you need, further there to help?
I'm talking without a mic on. I think this might be how we ended up with a contract with them that didn't have more specifics to it.
Okay.
So yeah, so on page 137, now my mic's on, under deliverables, which I'm guessing that's what we're paying them for, is the deliverables.
Correct.
Yes. If it's gonna say dashboard, which it does, I think it should specify that what we're looking, what kind of dashboards, because tonight there was technically a dashboard that we saw.
Sure.
I might be missing
It
something in
was,
it.
it's a district dashboard, you're right, but this would specify an additional
Yeah.
4 dashboards.
And maybe how
for each
many and
individual.
how they
That-
should be
that, yeah,
named, because I
of course,
actually
yeah.
saw tonight, I thought some of the names of the different groups could be problematic, so I think that we should make sure that the groups are named properly. And how many dashboards, because maybe I missed it because it was the first time we saw it, but I didn't see a drop down for kids who have disabilities. I saw just a drop down for ethnicity and race. So I'm in favor of us being able to drill down into data because it is extremely valuable. I want to make sure that that's what we're getting.
So, I mean, if I could ask them to go back and add that in and then bring it back at the May 9th meeting. It just means we won't have that, the dashboards available. Or if you are willing to, approve it for us with the understanding that, we're going to go back and ask them for those specifics in the contract. I could even send, a version of that, and we could, bring an updated version of that, to the next meeting. You let me know what you're comfortable with there. I mean, I absolutely hear your direction with that, and just wanting more specifics, which we should expect that from them. Absolutely.
What I've seen with you, Linda, is that when we, as a board, when we do ask you for something, you are so thorough with it and even go like further than even the board would. So I feel comfortable if you want to do that, take direction from the board, and then like essentially we're approving it tonight so I'll make a motion to approve it with the addition of more specifics, how many dashboards, the names of the dashboards, and anything else that they can be more specific on. Public facing coding, if that's not defined in the contract, I would like it to be. And what do they mean by 2 imported data projects?
Sure. I do know what they mean, but I think it needs to be delineated out. What they're saying is it'll be the student data and then the family engagement data. It'll be those 2 surveys specifically. But let's specify it. Absolutely, I agree.
And like I said, I might be missing something because this just struck me just now as I was looking at it. So thank you.
So we have a motion with a lot of extra stuff in there, but I think everybody heard it. I'm just thinking here for just a second. So 2 things. One, we're looking for a second, but also then when that does happen, can we get a short report back, like
Sure.
90 seconds
Yeah.
on once
I
how
will
it
follow it up
landed?
with you. I absolutely will, indeed, in our trustee update.
So-
Absolutely.
I'd
Yep.
like to make a comment
Yes.
before we continue. So when I was looking at this at home, I made the assumption, which I guess you should never do in a contract, but I made the assumption that dashboard and then public facing coding and 2 imported data projects, that may just be how they classify it. Because if we're responsible for the information that's being uploaded in there, they may not want to specify that in their contract because they don't control it. So I don't know that they would even want to put specifics on there.
The data is ours. Like the data is the data that we collected. That's Qualtrics' job, is to build the dashboard to access the data. And I think Laura's point saying is their job is not to ensure that we have a certain dropdown if our data didn't collect that. I think that would be something.
Are
that
you
maybe we could
talking
talk
about the students with disabilities?
As an example, that's the Qualtrics is building the tool, but it's up to us to provide the
To
data.
enter the data, right?
If that makes
So,
sense.
so we have the dashboard and they're giving us the dashboard, but what we put into it, I don't think that they would, we can ask, I guess, but I don't think that in a contract, they would specifically say, we're providing this exact dashboard. They're probably providing the template of the dashboard and we upload the data. And we can import 2 projects into that.
Well,
So-
if that's the case, which it might be,
Yeah, I just don't know that
then they should specify that in the contract.
That's a good point. But either way, we'll get it back however, and
No, I appreciate that.
I'll,
Yep.
I'll second the motion.
And
We'll go round and
So
round
just
forever.
a small, maybe a small point of order here too, because what we're now voting on is something a little different than what was actually here. So I would like to just, again, present it to public comment. If there's any public comment, because we did a little tweak. Anybody online, Lewis? No one? Anybody in the room?
I'd like more clarity on what it is that you're actually tweaking about the data with it. That would be great.
So, and again, the way we do these, it's public comment. So it's not a Q&A. We don't necessarily,
I'm
all
gonna be
due respect.
I'm
have to
gonna be a bit of a
respond.
parliamentarian. We do have a motion though, so we do have to vote on it, and then we can let it lie and come back and discuss it. But I think we do have to vote on, once the motion gets seconded, we do have to vote on it
Okay.
before comment.
that
The
done
motion
right?
came before comment finished,
Okay.
which is fine.
So we have a motion from
Sorry.
trustee Carolyn, and you have the verbiage on that. And we have a second from trustee Otmar. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, passes unanimously. And do we still want to, I think the direction was
Yeah.
to make it, to bring it back and have it be a little bit more robust and more options and have that defined.
Well,
I'm fine taking on the question of our commenter tonight and having that. I would like to take that on as a trustee and have that answered. If you don't mind, Linda.
so what I'm understanding is what the change we're going to go ahead and make is only to the contract, and we wanted to go ahead and add more specificity where it says dashboard. I'm going to go back and ask Qualtrics to specify how many dashboards they're creating, because they're going to be doing one based on the data that we have for each school site, which will be a total of 4 additional dashboards. So that way the parents from every one of our school sites can go ahead and access the data. So that's number one. We'll also be adding in exactly, what dashboard, so what data they're pulling. And as I said, they've indicated they currently have 2 dashboards that we've discussed we want to include, not dashboards, 2 let me get the exact language. Hold on one second. 2 imported data projects. And I know that they're specifying exactly, because based on our discussion, it's the student survey data and it's the family survey data that we're going to be doing, that they're going to put into that dashboard. And then the third edition, we'll ask them to define what public facing coding is. So it can be very clear what that is. The one thing they will not be able to do is add any other drop downs in the menus, demographics that identify students, because that is based on the questions that we asked in the survey we've already collected. So I think one of the reasons, to answer your question, and Trustee Swanson, about why don't we have, students with disabilities indicated, is because that wasn't a question we asked for students to identify themselves if they have a learning disability. Typically, that would have been. Now, I can't recall if that was a question we asked in the family survey. It may very well have been. And absolutely, if that was, that would be, one of the drop downs we can give. So, yeah. So that is what we're asking for.
Great.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you. Clarifying that. And so with that, moving on to item D, agreement for special services with law firm of Atkinson, Anderson, Loya, Rude, and Romo. Dr. Adamson.
It's a mouthful, yes, indeed. So really we're simply bringing this forward as a contract to have an additional attorney firm on retainer in the event we were to need counsel from a secondary law firm. I want to make it very clear that Lozano and Smith will continue to serve as our primary attorneys and legal firm. In the event we have, such as an agreement currently where Lozano and Smith is actually representing both us and another school district in a transportation agreement, all is well and good until if there were to be a situation where suddenly, now there's a conflict of interest, they wouldn't be able to represent us both in the event there was a situation. And so we would have then another firm on retainer that we could go ahead and seek additional counsel on. And really it falls, if there were to ever be additional area of expertise that they offer, that we would want to use their services. So, this contract is specifically for, that amount that we would really just be able to seek that council when we needed it, without having to, wait a couple of weeks to get the contract done. Yes.
Thank you very much. Let's go out to public comment. Lewis, do we have anybody online? No one online. Anyone in the room with the comment on a particular item? Seeing no one, let's go to the board. Board, any questions, concerns, comments?
I appreciate you outlining the reasons why we would have another law firm on retainer and the conflict that could arise. So I appreciate this as a preventative step in the event that we need it. We don't have to spend our time then securing an additional counsel, and I'm in support of it.
Any other board member comments? Seeing none, I think this is the first time we've ever had something like this. I don't recall seeing this in years past, so it's good to have it, obviously. So
We do.
Trustee Carolyn, you got something.
We do have an existing agreement for special services with the law firm of Danis, Walliver and Kelly. If you remember, we had William Tunick, the attorney, come in and do a governance training with us.
Yes.
But it's possible that that was, I don't know if that had an expiration date on it per se, and it's just, I'm in support of it just to have it as a backup. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I think it's prudent and valuable.
Would you like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion if there's no further board discussion on the item.
Sure. I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion from Trustee McNary and a second from Trustee Carolyn Swanson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Passes 100%. Moving on to item E, proposed board calendar, future meetings.
Right, and this really is our proposed meetings moving forward that we have calendared. And so just wanted to see if there was any update or questions, but it really just signifies, remaining meetings for the rest of this school year and then what we have in place for the beginning of next school year as well.
All right, and let's go to public comment on this first. Lewis, anybody online? No one. Anyone in the room comments on this particular item? Seeing no one. Board comments,
So given,
thoughts?
sorry, I was gonna say, given my poor timekeeping at the beginning, where would we want to put the safety update potentially on this calendar? That's something we could discuss quickly.
Oh, great idea. Yes, indeed. So, well, do we want to look at bringing it back May 9th? It's a heavy agenda, May 9th, I will say, but so is the 23rd.
I mean, the other option would be the 28th for the governance, but that seems like,
Well,
I don't know if that's waiting too long.
mm.
Curious what the rest of the board would think, but that's what popped in my mind, was just because that's only has one item on it.
Mm.
I think the 9th. It just demonstrates our taking it seriously.
Yep.
I like 9.
Had it.
Anybody else? Thoughts? All right, so any other board comments on the calendar overall?
I wondered if we want to entertain and just hold one date in July. In case, I know that the LCAP's not going to carry over to it, but we've been having incredible progress at our board meetings. And I was just wondering, we can cancel the one meeting in July if we don't need it, or if we should just roll with it. I'm just kind of actually trying to plan ahead. So what do you guys think?
I love the idea of it being like a special meeting rather than like a agendized one, but do you want it to be more of an agendized
I don't think it has to be a regular meeting.
Yeah.
Like it can just be there.
placeholder special
Like the
meeting?
first,
Yep.
what do we meet, the first and third Thursdays? or
First
something?
Thursday in July is July 4,
That will not work.
so be July 11.
Maybe. I mean, Linda, you've got a good read on things. Do you feel like there could be something that we should all, because no, I know that our board, it's better if we know in advance. It's better if we don't wait until June 6th to say like, oh yeah, we're going to need a July
Mhm.
meeting. So I kind of hold Thursdays for the board. Like I kind of hold all 4 of my Thursdays in a month for the board. So I think maybe we want to put one Thursday in July.
I like the idea of just at least calendaring a date and having it. If we need it, we
Okay.
use it. If we don't.
I would
We don't.
Push for the third Thursday, just so we're in line. So it's our normal first
Okay.
and third.
Yeah, I mean,
That would be
Luz
the
can-
18th.
maybe somebody can, we can do that.
Yep.
Chat about it
So July 18.
roughly, I would.
That would be my
Perfect.
suggestion.
Okay, I'll look.
Board, any opposition to at least putting a placeholder on July 18?
And part of the reason I do want to be very specific, I do want it to be a special, is so we don't expect everyone in the staff to be here if they don't need to be.
Mhm.
That
Yep.
tends to happen with our more regular.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and the third Thursday has typically been the special. And so that's for like last minute contracts, maybe a deep dive on something. What if we get miraculously the facilities master plan? And we're like, oh my gosh, we can make it for November 24th for the ballot.
I
So
like
that
that
could happen.
thinking. Ooh.
Okay.
It's no
So I'm gonna
doubt.
make a
I like the
motion
belief. I love that belief.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the board calendar, future meetings with the addition of July 18 as a placeholder for a special meeting.
Right.
And can I get a second?
And just a friendly amendment and adding the safety to the next.
Yes,
May
yes, which
But-
was May 9.
May
I would
9th,
second
correct,
that,
yeah,
if you're okay with that friendly amendment.
Yep, yep, yep.
I'm out of
Okay,
calendar.
so I made the motion. Dr. Hazen gave us the second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Passes 100%. And moving on to information discussion, future agenda items. Dr. Adamson.
Yes, well, do we have any future agenda items? I think we just added one for sure to May 9th. Anything else that comes to mind?
Anyone? Anyone? Well, let's go to public comment. Anybody online? Lewis, no one. Anyone in the room? Seeing no one rushing to the podium. Let's go to the board.
I'm looking at my tickle sheets. Do we want to, sorry, is okay. Okay, I'm looking at page 156 on the packets. I'm looking at what's already there on May 9th. I have a tickle in my calendar that we may or may not want to move forward with, but it was for a TOSA update. Elliot, was something you requested, like what? I think you wanted data on long-term effects of the TOSA?
Right, basically when the TOSAs were trying out, like I'll use Mr. Gamble as example, right? He was trying these alternative styles to learning. What persists, right? How do those make waves throughout the curriculum moving forward? Yeah, that would be a really good update, potentially. Thanks for remembering for me.
You're welcome. The other thing I had is a plan for summer school, which I think is rocking and rolling at this point, and I can cross that off. So that's what I have.
So no summer school update or you want?
No, I
Okay.
don't, I think it's already, I feel confident in it. Mhm.
But so we're hearing a request for some sort of TOSA.
And it's not an update from the TOSA,
No.
but it's more of whether it's a curriculum or a site-specific update.
Okay.
I'm just like, we had a TOSA and maybe going back 5 years, we had this TOSA.
Yeah.
And this is what that did for the district. So again, it's coming back to some of the comments that were raised earlier about accountability is the best I can say, but like, what did we get for that money? What did
So
that
it
do?
sounds like future agenda item that might still need to be massaged a little bit into some specificity. But no specific date yet either, right? Okay,
Yeah, I mean, and as a board, I'm fine with Elliot's item coming back. So further discussion between Elliot and Linda can take place and you guys can get the details rolling.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
okay. Did we already go out for public comment? No, we did not on future agenda items. No, we did. Yeah, that's why we're all talking about it now. Yes. All right, so there's direction, there's no vote. And you guys, with that, we're going to adjourn this meeting. Everybody have a great night and weekend.
For the record, early.
You got it.